be recalled.
Bây giờ
After 10 years of living in Daniel Whitmore's shadow, I finally stood up and became the witness that brought his empire crashing down. I declared in front of hundreds of eyes in the courtroom, I wasn't a partner, I was a prop. And today, I will prove he built an entire dynasty on deception. Before I share my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome hardship. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The champagne flute trembled in my hand as Daniel's fingers traced along my bare shoulder. Around us, 300 guests swirled through the Beverly Hills Hotel ballroom, their laughter creating a symphony of privilege I'd never quite learned to conduct. At 23, standing in a Vera Wang gown that cost more than my parents' annual income, I was supposed to feel like Cinderella at the ball. Instead, I felt like an architect's blueprint, carefully measured and precisely placed, waiting to be built into something I hadn't designed. "Smile, darling," Daniel whispered, his breath warm against my ear. "The photographer from Architectural Digest is watching." I lifted my chin, found the camera, and produced the smile I'd been practicing in mirrors for weeks. The flash burst white, capturing us in a moment of manufactured perfection. Daniel Whitmore, 38, real estate mogul with developments spanning from Malibu to Manhattan. And me, Sophia Daniel Carter, Whitmore, fresh out of USC, real estate with a master's in architecture, spanning from Malibu to Manhattan than any of his skyscrapers. Sophia Daniel Carter, Whitmore, fresh out of USC, celebrated young architect in New York with a master's in architecture, he murmured, turning me toward another cluster of guests. "I'll make sure the whole world knows dreams bigger than any of his skyscrapers." The words should have thrilled me. Fresh 6 months ago, when he'd first said them over dinner at Nobu, he'd seen my thesis project, a sustainable housing complex designed for low-income families, and proclaimed a genius. "You have vision," he'd said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I can give you the world to build on." Now, as he steered me through our reception, like a yacht through calm waters, I caught glimpses of myself in the gilded mirrors lining the walls. Each reflection showed a young woman drowning in tulle and expectations, her eyes searching for something just beyond the frame. My college roommate, Jessica, caught my arm near the dessert table. "You okay?" she asked, her voice low enough that the faint quartet couldn't swallow it. "Perfect," I said, the words tasting like fondant, sweet, artificial, meant to cover something else. He squeezed my hand. "Your mom would be so proud."
12.1. Some skills we should not imitate without supervision.
My program, never seeing me graduate, never knowing I'd marry into one of California's most powerful families. Would she be proud? Or would she recognize what I was too naive to see? That I was trading my compass for someone else's map. The wedding coordinator appeared, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Whitmore, time for your speech?" Mrs. Whitmore. The name sat on me like an ill-fitting coat. Daniel guided me to the microphone, his hand firm on the small of my back. The room quieted, faces turning towards us like flowers to the sun. I'd written a speech about partnership, about building a life together. But as I looked out at the sea of strangers, Daniel's business associates, politicians, people whose names I'd been drilling into my memory for weeks, the words evaporated. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice steadier than my hands. When I met Daniel, I was just a student with big dreams and bigger sketches. He saw something in me I paused, catching his eye. There was something cold there. Something I'd glimpsed before, but always explained away as focus, ambition, the natural distance of a man who'd built an empire. "That I'm still discovering," I finished. And the room laughed, thinking it romantic. As we danced our first dance to "The Way You Look Tonight," Daniel's hand pressed against my spine, holding me close enough that the photographers would capture our intimacy, but far enough that I could see his face. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes tracked the room, cataloging who was watching, who was worth impressing, who might be useful later. "The Times photographer just arrived," he said, spinning me gracefully. "After this song, we'll do the cake cutting. Make sure you laugh. Joy photographs better than smiles." 10 years. That's how long it takes for dreams to calcify, for hope to fossilize into something you keep on a shelf but never touch. I stood in our Malibu kitchen, all marble and steel and views that stretched to Catalina on clear days, making Daniel's coffee exactly how he liked it. 2 sugars, oat milk, temperature precisely 160 degrees. I'd bought a thermometer specifically for this purpose in year 3, when he'd complained one too many times about inconsistency. At 33, I'd become an expert at many things. I knew which dress to wear to which charity function, how to make small talk with senators' wives, how to stand at Daniel's side during groundbreaking ceremonies, and smile like I contributed something beyond my presence. What I didn't know anymore was how to hold a drafting pencil without my hand shaking. The Palisades fundraiser is Thursday, Daniel said, entering the kitchen while scrolling through his phone. He took the coffee without looking up, without saying thank you. These small erosions of courtesy had happened so gradually, I'd stopped noticing when they began. Wear the blue Chanel. And do something about your hair, the gray is showing. I touched my temple unconsciously. 3 silver strands had appeared last month, and I'd made the mistake of thinking they made me look distinguished. I thought I might wear the black, the blue. He set down his cup, finally looking at me. The mayor's wife will be wearing black. I don't want you to match. How did he know what the mayor's wife would wear? The same way he knew everything, through a network of assistants and informants who kept him 3 steps ahead of everyone, including me. I was thinking, I began, gathering courage from somewhere deep, about the West Side Development Project. I had some ideas for the community spaces that might— Not now, Sophia. He was already moving toward his office. I have a call with Tokyo in 5 minutes. But you said last month we could discuss— I said we'd see. He paused in the doorway, his silhouette sharp against the morning light. Don't you have Pilates at 10? I did. Pilates at 10, lunch with the charity committee at 1, a fitting at 3 for a gala I didn't want to attend. My days were full of nothing. Scheduled to the minute, designed to keep me busy without letting me build anything. After he left for the office, he still went in person, said it showed strength. I found myself in the guest room I'd converted to storage. Boxes lined the walls, labeled in my neat handwriting, USC projects, competition entries, dreams. I'd written that last one after too much wine one night in year 5, when I'd finally accepted that my drafting table would remain folded in the garage. I opened the nearest box, pulled out my thesis project. The paper had yellowed slightly, but the lines were still clean, still speaking a language I'd once been fluent in. My sustainable housing complex had won the Dean's Award. Professor Martinez had called it revolutionary in its simplicity, profound in its humanity. Where was that girl? The one who'd stayed up for 3 days straight, fueled by instant ramen and the belief that architecture could change lives? I traced the elevation drawings, remembering how my hand had moved with such certainty, how every line had purpose. My phone buzzed. Daniel's assistant, confirming my Pilates appointment and reminding me that the car would arrive at 9:45. I almost laughed. Even my free time wasn't free. That evening, Daniel came home late as usual. I'd made dinner, salmon with that honey glaze he liked, asparagus arranged just so. He ate while reading emails, occasionally making sounds that could have been approval or just acknowledgement that food was entering his system. I ran into Professor Martinez today, I said, testing the waters, at the coffee shop on Montana. Daniel's fingers paused over his phone. Oh. He asked if I was still designing, said he had a position open at his firm, thought I might be interested in— You embarrassed me. His voice was calm, which was worse than anger. My wife? Taking a junior position at some boutique firm? What would people think? That I'm using my degree? That I'm contributing something? He set down his phone, gave me his full attention for the first time all day. You contribute plenty. The Fletcher Foundation raised $2 million at the gala you organized. That's contribution. That's party planning, Daniel. I'm an architect. You were a student who drew pretty pictures? There's a difference. He resumed eating. The conversation closed. Clear your schedule for next Tuesday. We're having dinner with the governor. The divorce papers look so innocent, sitting there on our kitchen island between the fruit bowl and the mail I'd sorted that morning. Just a manila folder, slightly thick, with a post-it note on top in Daniel's precise handwriting. We need to talk. He'd timed it perfectly, of course. I'd just returned from my annual mammogram, the one where they'd found a suspicious shadow that turned out to be nothing. I'd texted him from the hospital, relieved, thinking he'd want to know. He'd read the message, but hadn't responded. Now I understood why. Sit, he said, gesturing to the bar stool across from him. He'd positioned himself with the morning light behind him, casting his face in shadow while illuminating mine. Even now, he was directing the scene. I remained standing. What is this? Don't be dramatic, Sophia. You know what it is. My hands found the counter's edge, gripping the marble that had cost more than most people's cars. I don't understand. Of course you do. He opened the folder, revealing documents marked with colored tabs. 10 years is a good run. You've played your part well. But I need something different now. Something different? The words came out strangled. I'm not a car lease, Daniel. He actually smiled at that. No, you're not. A car would have retained more value. The cruelty of it hit me physically, like a slap. I sank onto the stool, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Is there someone else? Does it matter? He slid papers toward me. I've been generous. The Brooklyn apartment is yours, plus a settlement that will keep you comfortable. All you have to do is sign Brooklyn. 3,000 miles from everyone I knew, from the life I'd built? No, the life that had been built around me. This is my home. This is my house, he corrected, as is the Aspen cabin, the Manhattan penthouse, and the vineyard in Napa. Your name was never on anything, remember? For tax purposes. For tax purposes. How many things had I agreed to for tax purposes, for appearances, for the greater good of Daniel's empire? What about my work with the foundations, the committees? They'll find someone else. He checked his watch. I have a meeting in an hour. The movers will come on Monday. Monday? That's 3 days. More than enough time to pack. Take what's yours, leave what's mine. The lawyers have an itemized list if you're confused. I laughed, a sharp sound that surprised us both. 10 years? And you're giving me 3 days? I'm giving you a new beginning. He stood, buttoning his jacket. You should thank me. 33 is still young enough to start over. Barely, I mean. Don't. The word came out stronger than I felt. Don't pretend this is some favor. His expression hardened. Fine. You want honesty? You've served your purpose. The young architect wife was useful when I was building my reputation as a patron of the arts, but I'm beyond that now. I need a partner who can navigate Washington, not someone who still dreams about building homeless shelters. You said my designs were genius. I said what I needed to say. He moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Sophia? Don't embarrass yourself trying to resurrect that little architecture career. No one's going to hire a 33-year-old housewife who hasn't touched CAD software in a decade. That dream died years ago. You just refused to bury it. After he left, I sat in the silence of his kitchen, staring at the papers. My signature lines were highlighted in yellow, cheerful and bright. On the counter, my phone buzzed with reminders. Tennis lesson at 2. Dinner reservations at Craig's. Friday's fitting at Barney's. I canceled them all. That night, I found myself in my storage room again, but this time with purpose. If I only had 3 days, I needed to decide what mattered. The boxes felt heavier now, weighted with a decade of deferred dreams. I pulled out portfolio after portfolio, spreading them across the floor like evidence of a life I'd almost lived. At the bottom of one box, folded carefully in tissue paper, was something I'd forgotten. My first drafting pencil, the one my mother had given me when I'd been accepted to USC. For drawing your future, she'd said. I held it up to the light, still sharp. The call came at 2 a.m. Seattle time. I'd been in Brooklyn for exactly 1 week, sleeping on an air mattress in an apartment that smelled like someone else's life, when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Sophia? It's Ethan Reed. The name pulled me from half sleep like a hook. Ethan from studio class. Ethan who'd won the Rome Prize. Ethan who'd asked me to be his partner for the final project senior year. I'd chosen Daniel's promises instead. How did you get this number? Jessica gave it to me, said you might need a friend. His voice hadn't changed, still carrying that hint of Virginia mountains underneath the professional polish. I heard about everything. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. Define everything. Daniel's press release said you were taking time to find yourself, or some bullshit. I know his PR speak when I hear it. Through my window, Brooklyn sprawled gray and indifferent. What do you want, Ethan? To offer you a job. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. You too? Going to save the fallen socialite? Going to hire a brilliant architect who's been benched too long? His tone grew serious. I have a project in Seattle. Historic neighborhood restoration, mixed use, community focused. I need someone who understands that buildings are about more than profit margins. I haven't worked in 10 years, I know. You think you're the only one who's kept tabs? I saw your thesis project, Sophia. That kind of vision doesn't disappear. It just goes dormant. I closed my eyes. Daniel said no one would hire me. Daniel's an ass who wouldn't recognize real talent if it submitted a blueprint for his own ego. The first genuine smile in weeks tugged at my lips. I can't just fly to Seattle. Why not? What's keeping you in Brooklyn? I looked around the empty apartment, at the boxes I hadn't unpacked, at the life I hadn't chosen. Nothing. There's a flight at 7 tomorrow morning. I'll have a ticket waiting. After we hung up, I sat in the dark, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Possibility. It terrified me more than Daniel's cruelty, more than the divorce papers, more than starting over. Hope was dangerous when you taught yourself not to feel it. I found Ethan at Pike Place Market, sketching the fish vendors. He looked older, of course, weren't we all? But his hands moved with the same quick certainty I remembered. When he saw me, he stood, and for a moment we just looked at each other across a decade of different choices. "You came," he said. "You called." He smiled, and suddenly we were 22 again, arguing about cantilevers and compression in the studio at 3 a.m. "Come on, let me show you the site." The project was in Georgetown, an industrial neighborhood fighting to maintain its character against the tide of gentrification. Warehouses stood like old soldiers, brick and timber bones waiting to be either honored or erased. Ethan walked me through blocks of possibility, his vision unfolding with each gesture. "We're not just restoring buildings," he explained, stopping at a corner where art studios neighbored metal shops. "We're preserving a community. The artists, the makers, the families who've been here for generations, they're the real architecture. We just provide the framework." "Daniel would call this naive," I said, then caught myself. "Sorry, I'm still deprogramming." Ethan turned to face me. "It's okay. 10 years of being told your dreams are childish leaves marks." We ended up in his office, a converted warehouse space filled with drafting tables, models, and the controlled chaos of active creation. Young architects worked in clusters, their energy palpable. On the walls, projects in various stages covered every surface, not monuments to ego, but spaces designed for living. "This would be your project," Ethan said, spreading plans across a table. "The corner lot. Mixed use, affordable housing above, community spaces below. The neighborhood wants a place that serves everyone. Kids, artists, elderly residents who've been here since the shipyard days." I traced the site boundaries, feeling rusty gears beginning to turn. The zoning must be a nightmare. "Already handled. We have 6 months to deliver initial designs." "We?" "Your team. 3 juniors, eager to learn from someone who understands that architecture is about more than aesthetics." He paused. "That is, if you're interested." "Ethan, I appreciate this, but..." I gestured at myself. At the designer clothes that suddenly felt like costume pieces. "I'm not who I was." "No," he agreed. "You're someone who survived Daniel Whitmore. That takes strength most people don't have." The news alert came while I was reviewing Seattle building codes, my first real work in a decade. Whitmore Industries announces expansion into Pacific Northwest. My stomach dropped as I read further. Daniel was coming to Seattle, bringing his particular brand of development to the city I'd just begun to call refuge. "You okay?" I looked up to find Monica Alvarez, Ethan's legal counsel, standing in my cubicle doorway. We'd met briefly during my hiring, but something in her expression suggested she understood more than our casual acquaintance should allow. "Fine," I lied, closing the alert. "No, you're not." She entered uninvited, settling into my spare chair with the confidence of someone who'd faced down bigger problems than social niceties. Daniel Whitmore doesn't expand anywhere without trying to crush existing competition, especially competition that employs his ex-wife. How did you know about your connection?" "Honey, I make it my business to know everything about the men who think they own this city." She leaned forward. "I also know he destroyed the Riverfront Arts Collective in Portland last year. Bought the building out from under them. Claimed it was just business. The lead architect on that project? She just left her position at his firm to start her own practice." My hands felt cold. "Are you saying he's here because of me?" "I'm saying Daniel Whitmore doesn't believe in coincidences. Neither should you." That night, Ethan and I worked late reviewing the community feedback from our initial presentations. The Georgetown residents had been cautiously optimistic, their hopes tempered by years of promises broken by other developers. I was deep in sketching when my phone rang. Unknown number, Seattle area code. "Mrs. Whitmore?" The voice was professionally warm. "This is Patricia Chen from the Seattle Times. We're doing a piece on your husband's new waterfront project." "Ex-husband," I corrected. "Of course. My apologies. We'd love to get your perspective on his vision for Seattle's development future." I could smell the trap from here. No comment. "Surely you have thoughts about the proposed demolition of historic buildings in Georgetown?" My blood chilled. "What demolition?" "Oh, you haven't heard? Whitmore Industries just submitted plans to the city? The entire block between Airport and Lucille. Isn't that near your current project?" I hung up. "That son of a bitch," Ethan said when I told him. He pulled up the city planning website, and there it was. A proposal for a 30-story mixed-use tower, right in the heart of the neighborhood we were trying to preserve. The renderings were sleek, modern, everything Daniel built, structures that photographed beautifully and lived coldly. "He's trying to force us out," I said. "He's trying to force you back," Monica corrected, appearing with a stack of papers. "Look at the proposed timeline. Aggressive enough to pressure the city, but with just enough delays built in for negotiation. He's not here to build, he's here to bully. The next 2 weeks were a blur of city council meetings, community organizers, and sleepless nights. Daniel's team moved through Seattle like a plague of expensive suits, promising jobs and tax revenue while quietly buying options on every available property. I was leaving a particularly brutal zoning hearing when I saw him. Daniel, standing by a town car, looking exactly as he had the day he'd handed me divorce papers, controlled, cold, certain of victory. "Sophia," he said my name like he still owned it. "You look tired. What do you want?" "To help you avoid embarrassment." "Again?" He stepped closer, and I fought the instinct to retreat. "This little experiment of yours with Reed, it's touching. But we both know how it ends. You're not equipped for this fight." "You don't know what I'm equipped for." He smiled, that particular expression that used to make me feel small. "I know you spent 10 years planning parties while I built empires. Go back to Brooklyn, Sophia. Take up watercolors or wine tasting. Leave the real work to those of us who understand it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a kindness. The last one you'll get from me." As his car pulled away, Monica appeared beside me. "You okay?" "No." I watched the taillights disappear. "But I'm not running." She smiled, fierce and understanding. "Good, because I've been waiting years for someone with enough inside knowledge to help me take him down." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Daniel Whitmore destroyed my sister's construction company 5 years ago. Used the same tactics, sudden expansion, price manipulation, strategic pressure until she had to sell for pennies on the dollar. She handed me a business card. "When you're ready to fight back, really fight back, call me." Daniel's not the only one who keeps records. The storage unit in Belltown smelled like dust and old paper. Monica led me through rows of boxes, each labeled with dates and project names I half recognized from Daniel's dinner conversation over the years. "My sister was meticulous," Monica said, pulling out a file. "She documented everything. Every permit suddenly delayed, every inspector who showed up with impossible demands, every anonymous complaint that triggered investigations. The pattern was always the same." I opened the file, seeing forms and emails that looked frustratingly legitimate individually but painted a damning picture collectively. This must have taken years to compile. "She died, still trying to prove it." Monica's voice carried old anger. "Heart attack at 43. Stress-induced, the doctors said." "Daniel, induced, I say." We spent hours going through documents, and with each box, I recognized more. The shell companies mentioned in passing, the political connections Daniel cultivated like a garden, the strategic donations that always preceded favorable zoning decisions. "None of this is enough," I said finally. "It's all circumstantial. Which is why I need you." Monica pulled out a tablet showing bank records. "These transactions, I can't trace them fully, but you lived with him. You might recognize patterns I can't see." I studied the screen, dates and amounts blurring until, there, that one, February 2019, 2 days before the Coastal Commission reversed their decision on the Malibu project. "You're sure?" "He took me to Catalina that weekend. Said it was spontaneous, but he'd been tense about the commission for weeks. When we came back, he was different, relaxed, like he knew something had changed." Monica made notes. "What else?" "For the next 3 days, I became an archaeologist of my own life, excavating memories I'd buried. The dinner parties where city council members got drunk and chatty, the golf weekends with judges whose names I'd been instructed to remember, the charity auctions where permits got discussed between paddle raises. Then Clara found us. She appeared at my apartment on a Thursday evening, rain-soaked and nervous. Blonde hair darker than in the society photos, designer clothes replaced with jeans and an oversized sweater. Without the makeup and styling, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "You're Sophia," she said. It wasn't a question. "How did you find me?" "I've been watching Daniel's moves. When he comes to destroy someone, I try to warn them." She shivered. "Can I come in?" Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on my second-hand couch like she'd never seen furniture that didn't cost 5 figures, holding the tea I offered with both hands. "You were his mistress," I said. Not accusing, just stating fact. "I was a lot of things." She looked up, and her eyes were the same cold blue as Daniel's, including his sister. The mug slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Tea spread across the hardwood like a confession. "Half-sister," Clara continued, not moving to help clean up. "Same father, different mothers. The family paid mine to disappear when I was born. Keep the bloodline clean, the fortune undiluted. But you and Daniel found each other when I was 22. He didn't know who I was at first. When he found out, she wrapped her arms around herself. He said it didn't matter, that we were above conventional morality, that power made its own rules. I felt sick. Why are you telling me this? Because he's escalating. The Seattle move isn't about business, it's about you. You're the first one who left him instead of being discarded. He can't tolerate that. So, what do you want? To end this. She reached into her bag, pulled out a flash drive. 5 years of recordings, conversations, transactions, connections between his public developments and private payoffs. Enough to destroy him. Why now? Because last week, he told me about his next project. After he crushes you here, he's moving to Denver. There's a woman there, an architect like you, young, idealistic, talented, her voice broke. I can't watch him do it again. I took the drive, its weight disproportionate to its size. This could destroy you too. I'm already destroyed. Have been since the day I learned my own brother saw me as just another asset to leverage. She stood. There's a reporter at the Washington Post, David Kim. He's been investigating Daniel for 2 years, but could never get deep enough. This will give him everything he needs. What about you? Where will you go? Somewhere, Daniel's name means nothing. If such a place exists. She moved toward the door, then paused. He used to talk about you, you know. Said you were his greatest creation, the perfect wife he'd molded from raw potential. It enraged him when you started remembering who you were before him. After she left, I sat with the drive in my hand, understanding I held a weapon that could end everything. Daniel's empire, his reputation, possibly his freedom. But using it meant exposing myself too, admitting I'd been blind to corruption happening in my own home. The Washington Post story broke on a Tuesday morning. The Whitmore Files, a dynasty built on deception, sprawled across the front page of the business section. David Kim had worked magic with Clara's recordings, weaving them into a narrative that read like a thriller but carried the weight of meticulous journalism. I watched from Ethan's office as the internet exploded. Daniel's PR team went into overdrive, issuing denials and threats of lawsuits, but Clara had been thorough. Every claim had documentation, every accusation came with audio. By noon, 3 city councilmen had resigned. By evening, the FBI had raided Whitmore Industries' headquarters. You should be celebrating, Ethan said, finding me on the roof garden where I'd retreated to escape the chaos. Should I? I watched Seattle's skyline, thinking about all the buildings with Daniel's fingerprints on them. 20 years of corruption, and I lived right in the middle of it. What does that make me? A survivor, Monica said, joining us. Who's doing more to stop him than anyone else could. The summons came the next day. Not for arrest, for testimony. The federal prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Chen, who looked like she'd been waiting her whole career for a case like this, laid out what they needed from me. You're not a target, Mrs. Carter, but you're a witness to patterns of behavior, meetings, conversations that corroborate the financial evidence. Whitmore, I corrected automatically, then caught myself. Actually, no, Carter. Sophia Carter. She smiled. Miss Carter, then? We'll need you to testify about what you observed during your marriage. The meetings, the conversations, any unusual financial activities you witnessed? I don't know if I can. He's hired Kellerman and Associates, she interrupted. They're already building a defense that you're a bitter ex-wife trying to destroy him out of spite. If you don't testify, that narrative wins. The trial was set for 6 months out, but the court of public opinion convened immediately. Daniel's team painted me as a gold digger who'd turned vindictive when the money dried up. They released photos from our marriage, me at galas, dripping in jewels, looking every inch the trophy wife they claimed I'd always been. Let them, Monica advised when I showed her the latest hit piece. Every photo they release shows you standing in his shadow. The jury will see what you gave up. 3 weeks before the trial, something unexpected happened. Other women started coming forward. Not mistresses, architects, developers, business owners who had been crushed by Daniel's tactics over the years. They'd seen Clara's courage, my testimony announced in the press, and found their own voices. The trial itself was a blur of dark suits and harsh lights. Daniel sat at the defense table like he was closing a deal, confident and controlled. He'd aged in the months since the story broke, but it only made him look more distinguished. The media loved it, the fallen titan maintaining dignity in disgrace. I took the stand on day 3. Daniel's lawyer, a shark named Harrison Kellerman, tried to shake me immediately. Miss Carter, isn't it true you were unemployed when you met my client? I was a graduate student, living on loans and ramen, as you once told a reporter. Living like most graduate students. And then Mr. Whitmore appeared, offered you a life of luxury, and you took it, correct? I found Daniel's eyes across the courtroom. He was almost smiling, certain I'd crumble like I always had under pressure. He offered me a future where my designs would matter, I said clearly, where I could build things that help people. Instead, I got a decade of silence and charity committees. But you enjoyed the benefits, didn't you? The houses, the cars, the social position. I enjoyed believing my husband when he said, wait. I enjoyed thinking patience was an investment in our shared future. I straightened. I stopped enjoying anything when I realized I wasn't a partner. I was a prop. The prosecutor, Sarah, took over. Miss Carter, please tell the court about the dinner on March 15, 2019. I described it all, the federal judge who'd gotten too drunk, the conversation about reciprocal favors, the way Daniel had steered talk toward upcoming rulings. I explained the pattern, donations, dinners, decisions, always in that order. Did you understand at the time what was happening? I understood my husband was very good at getting what he wanted. I didn't understand the cost until much later. On the fourth day, they played Clara's recordings. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom, cold and casual, as he discussed bribes like grocery lists. I watched his composure finally crack, his jaw tightening with each damning word. The moment that broke him came from an unexpected source. One of his own executives, granted immunity, testified about the systematic destruction of competitors. He produced internal memos where Daniel explicitly outlined plans to eliminate the architectural irritant in Seattle, meaning me and Ethan's firm. He called her defective product, the executive read from an email, said he needed to recall her before she damaged the brand further. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon in late spring, guilty on all counts. I stood in the courthouse lobby, watching through glass doors as federal marshals led Daniel away. He didn't look back, didn't search for my face in the crowd. Even in defeat, I remained invisible to him. It's over, Monica said, squeezing my shoulder. But it wasn't, not really. Endings are rarely that clean. The real conclusion came 6 months later, at the ribbon cutting for our Georgetown project. The building rose from the corner lot like hope itself. Brick and timber honoring the neighborhood's past, solar panels, and rain gardens pointing toward its future. The affordable housing units were already full. Artists and families and elderly residents who'd thought the city had forgotten them. You did this, Ethan said, handing me the ceremonial scissors. We did this, I corrected, but took them anyway. The crowd was bigger than expected. Former Whitmore Industries employees who'd found new work with firms that valued integrity. Women who'd reached out after the trial, sharing their own stories of dreams deferred by men who thought they owned the world. Clara was there, in the back, wearing sunglasses and a smile that looked like it was still learning how to be genuine. But the person who mattered most stood in the front row. Professor Martinez, now in his 70s, holding a rolled-up set of plans. Miss Carter, he said after the ceremony, using my real name like a gift, I believe these belong to you. I unrolled them carefully. My thesis project, the one that had started everything, but underneath, new pages. Plans adapted for modern codes, structural calculations updated, a vision refined but not replaced. How did you? I've been working on them, he admitted. Since I heard you were back in the field, there's a lot in South Seattle that could use this design, if you're interested. I'm interested, I said, meaning it more than I'd meant anything in years. Phoenix Design Studio opened the following month. Not the grandiose firm Daniel had once promised to build around me, but something better. A collective of architects who understood that buildings were about more than profit margins. Our motto, etched in reclaimed wood above the entrance, from the ashes, we build. The Times ran a feature on our 1-year anniversary. The reporter asked how it felt to go from being Mrs. Daniel Whitmore to leading one of Seattle's most innovative firms. I was never Mrs. Daniel Whitmore, I told her. I was Sophia Carter, playing a role I didn't write. Now, I'm just Sophia Carter, and that's enough. Clara visited on a rainy Tuesday, looking healthier than I'd ever seen her. She'd been living in Montana, she said, working with horses and trying to remember who she was before Daniel convinced her she was nothing without him. I wanted to thank you, she said, for believing me, for using what I gave you. You saved yourself, I reminded her. I just held the door open. We talked for hours, two women who'd survived the same storm differently, but emerged on the same shore. When she left, she hugged me, awkward but sincere, like she was learning how to mean it. The letter from Daniel came through his lawyers, of course. He was serving his time in a minimum security facility, teaching business classes to other inmates. He wanted me to know he wasn't angry, that he understood I'd done what I thought necessary, that he hoped I'd found whatever I'd been looking for. I burned it without responding. Some conversations are better left closed. On the second anniversary of the verdict, Seattle announced a new initiative, the Ethical Development Award, recognizing firms that prioritize community benefit alongside profit. Phoenix Design won the inaugural honor. Standing at the podium, looking out at a room full of colleagues who saw buildings as more than investments, I thought about the girl who'd stood at another podium 13 years earlier, drowning in tulle and someone else's expectations. Architecture, I said, finding my voice strong and steady, is about creating spaces where people can become who they're meant to be. For too long, I forgot that included the architect herself. But the beautiful thing about building is that it's never too late to start over, to lay a new foundation, to reach for a different sky. The applause was warm, genuine, nothing like the performed appreciation of Daniel's galas. In the audience, I saw the next generation of architects, young women with big dreams and bigger sketches, ready to build worlds that included everyone. After the ceremony, a young intern approached, nervous but determined. "Miss Carter, I'm starting my thesis project and I was wondering, could you look at my plans?" I smiled, remembering Professor Martinez making the same offer to a 22-year-old who thought she needed someone else's power to build her dreams. "Let's see what you've got," I said, and meant it. That night, I stood on my apartment balcony, a modest place in Capitol Hill, nothing like the Malibu mansion, but entirely mine. Seattle spread before me, a city of possibility lit by more than spotlights. Somewhere out there, Daniel sat in a cell of his own making. Somewhere else, Clara was learning to trust again. And here I was, 36 years old, finally the architect of my own life. The city lights blurred as tears came, not of sadness, but of recognition. I'd spent so long in shadows I'd forgotten what my own light looked like. But it was there all along, waiting beneath the spotlight's glare, ready to illuminate something real. Tomorrow, I'd review those thesis plans. Next week, we'd break ground on 3 new projects. Next month, who knew? The future was unbuilt, unscripted, undecided. And for the first time in 13 years, that felt like freedom. My name is Ariana Lewis. On my wedding day, as I walked down the aisle in my family's heirloom gown, my fiancé suddenly stopped the ceremony and shouted before 400 guests, "I can't marry her because the woman I truly love is Olivia Brooks." The church went silent, but I didn't cry. I placed my hand on my stomach and said, "Well then, our child will be disappointed to learn their father is a coward." In that single moment, I turned my ruined wedding into the opening move of a battle that would change my life forever. Before I share my full story, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The smell of magnolias drifted through the stained glass windows of St. Louis Cathedral that morning. I stood in the bride's room, running my fingers over the delicate lace of my mother's wedding dress, the same one she'd worn 32 years ago when she married Daddy in this very church. The ivory silk had yellowed slightly with age, but Grandma Lucille had worked her magic with some careful restoration. "Every Lewis woman has worn this dress," she'd whispered as she helped me into it an hour ago, her weathered hands surprisingly steady as she fastened each pearl button. 400 guests waited in those pews. 400 witnesses to what I believed would be the happiest day of my life. Michael had insisted on the grand affair, typical of a Carter, really. His family's real estate empire demanded spectacle, and I'd convinced myself that his need for perfection was just another form of love. The organ music swelled. My bouquet of white roses trembled in my hands, not from nerves, but from anticipation. 29 years I'd waited for this moment. 29 years of watching friends marry, of being the perpetual bridesmaid, of deflecting well-meaning questions at family gatherings. But here I was, Ariana Lewis, about to become Mrs. Michael Carter. Daddy took my arm at the entrance. I could feel him trembling slightly. He'd never been good with emotions. The doors opened, revealing a sea of faces turned toward me, their expressions soft with that particular tenderness reserved for brides. Michael stood at the altar, devastatingly handsome in his charcoal gray tuxedo, but something was wrong. His jaw was clenched, his hands clasped too tightly in front of him. Each step down that aisle felt like crossing an ocean. My smile never wavered. Years of Southern upbringing had taught me that much. The whispers started when I was halfway there. Michael had turned to his groomsmen, said something that made them shift uncomfortably. Father Benedict cleared his throat as I reached the altar. "Dearly beloved, we gather here today Stop. Michael's voice cut through the church like a blade through silk. The blood in my veins turned to ice water, but I kept that smile frozen on my face. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I'm sorry, Ariana. He turned to face the congregation, not me, always the showman. I can't do this. The woman I truly love isn't Ariana. It's Olivia Brooks. As the church erupted in gasps, I watched Olivia, his personal assistant, my friend, stand up from the third pew, her hand pressed to her mouth in what I now realized was rehearsed shock. My bouquet hit the floor, white roses scattering across the aged marble. But I didn't cry. Instead, I felt something else entirely. A strange, cold clarity. My hand moved instinctively to my belly, to the secret I'd planned to share on our honeymoon. The baby that would have been our surprise, our joy, was now my armor. Well then. My voice rang out clear and strong, surprising even me. I suppose our child will be disappointed to learn their father is a coward. The church fell silent. Michael's face strained of color. According to the prenuptial agreement you insisted I sign, I continued, each word deliberate as a hammer strike. Any child of ours inherits 35% of Carter Holdings. I picked up my bouquet with dignity that would have made Grandma Lucille proud. I'll have my lawyer send over the paternity test request on Monday. I turned and walked back down that aisle, my mother's dress trailing behind me like a battle flag. The cypress trees along the Mississippi looked exactly as they had when I was 7, running barefoot through the marsh grass while Grandma Lucille called warnings about water moccasins from the porch. Her house, my house now, sat on stilts like a weathered gray heron watching over the slow-moving river. The paint was peeling in places, and the screen door still sang that same rusty song when you opened it. "Ain't no shame in coming home," Grandma said as she poured sweet tea into mason jars that afternoon. She hadn't asked questions when I'd shown up in my wedding dress, mascara raccooned around my eyes despite my best efforts. She'd simply drawn me a bath, laid out my old bedroom, and started cooking red beans and rice like it was any other Sunday. The first few days blurred together. I'd wake at 3 a.m., my hand reaching for a body that wasn't there, then remember. The remembering was the worst part, that moment when sleep's mercy ended and reality crashed back. My phone buzzed constantly until I threw it in the kitchen drawer, but Grandma, bless her, had kept the house newspaper-free and internet sparse. She was my fortress against the world's prying eyes. Saw Ethan Walker at Rouse's yesterday, she mentioned casually one morning, about a week after I'd returned. Says he opened up that coffee shop on Magazine Street he was always talking about. Ethan. I hadn't thought about him in years, not since law school when we'd studied for the bar exam together, fueled by ambition and too much caffeine. He'd been the one who'd made me laugh during those brutal all-nighters, who'd believed I could be more than just some society wife. "Don't need coffee," I muttered, but Grandma just hummed and went back to her crossword. The morning sickness started the next day. I found myself hunched over the toilet, Grandma holding my hair back with hands that had done this for my mother and her mother before that. "How far along?" she asked simply. 8 weeks? The words came out between retches. I was going to tell him in Santorini. She made a sound that might have been sympathy or might have been disgust. With Grandma, you could never quite tell. Well, baby don't care about your plans. Baby just is. That evening, I discovered why my phone had been buzzing so insistently. A video of the wedding, someone had filmed Michael's announcement, and my response had gone viral. "Billionaire's bride's revenge," the headlines screamed. My private catastrophe had become public entertainment. The next morning, I was contemplating whether I could survive 9 months on Grandma's cooking alone when the screen door sang its rusty song. Ethan Walker stood on our porch, looking nothing like the stressed law student I remembered. His suits had been replaced by worn jeans and a Saints t-shirt, his ambitions seemingly traded for laugh lines and a thermos of coffee. "Heard you might need a friend," he said simply, holding out the thermos. "It's decaf. Lucille mentioned you might be off the regular stuff for a while." I wanted to be angry at Grandma for meddling, but the coffee smelled like comfort, and Ethan's smile held no pity, just warmth. "The vultures are circling," he continued, gesturing toward the road where I could now see a news van idling. "Thought you might need someone who knows how to tell them to go to hell. Legally speaking, of course." "You're not a lawyer anymore," I pointed out, accepting the coffee. "No, but I remember enough to know they're trespassing on private property." He grinned. "Plus, I make a mean, media-deflecting latte. It's my specialty." For the first time in days, I found myself almost smiling. Sofia Delgado arrived at Grandma's house like a hurricane in Louboutins, her briefcase hitting our kitchen table with the authority of a judge's gavel. She was everything I wasn't feeling. Sharp, confident, ready for war. Ethan had recommended her, said she was the kind of lawyer who ate corporate attorneys for breakfast and used their bones to pick her teeth. "Let me get this straight," she said, her New Orleans accent wrapping around the words like Spanish moss. "Michael Carter wants to deny paternity to avoid the prenup clause." She actually laughed. "Oh, honey, we're going to destroy him." The legal documents she spread across Grandma's table looked like battle plans, which I supposed they were. Michael's team had already filed motions claiming I'd manipulated him, that the pregnancy was fabricated, that I was nothing but a gold digger who'd planned this all along. "The irony," I said, staring at a particularly nasty affidavit from Olivia, claiming I'd been unstable throughout our relationship, is that I never wanted his money. I wanted Sunday mornings and babies and someone to grow old with. "Well, now you'll get the money and the baby," Sophia said pragmatically. "The Sunday mornings you'll have to source elsewhere." The court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for the following week, but that evening, Nathan Carter, Michael's half-brother, appeared at our door with a warning. Michael was planning to claim the baby wasn't his, that I'd been unfaithful. He had manufactured evidence. Nathan looked nothing like Michael. Where Michael was golden and polished, Nathan was dark and sharp-edged, wearing his lesser status in the Carter Empire-like armor. He'd inherited just enough shares to be noticed, but not enough to matter, until now. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, gripping my tea mug to keep my hands from shaking. "Because Michael destroyed everything he touches," Nathan said quietly, "including our father, including me. Maybe it's time someone stopped him." After he left, I sat on the porch watching the river carry debris toward the Gulf. Branches, leaves, pieces of other people's lives. Ethan found me there an hour later. "You okay?" He settled beside me, close enough that I could smell his coffee shop scent. "I used to think the worst thing would be raising this baby alone," I admitted. "Now I realize the worst thing would be raising it with a father who sees it as a financial liability." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, "My dad left when I was 10. Not the same thing, I know. But my mom used to say that being chosen to be someone's only parent was the highest honor in the world. Your mom sounds wise. She was..." He smiled sadly. "She would have liked you. She had a thing about women who didn't cry when they should be crying. Said they were saving their tears for something more important." The DNA test came back exactly as expected. 99.9% probability that Michael Carter was the father. Sophia released the results to the press with surgical precision, right when Michael was scheduled to announce a major development deal. The photos of him leaving the courthouse, jaw clenched and handler scrambling, made the front page of the Times-Picayune. "Part 1 of our victory," Sophia announced, popping champagne, sparkling cider for me, in Grandma's kitchen. "Now we go for the shares." But that night, as I lay in my childhood bed, feeling the baby flutter for the first time, tiny bubbles of life that made everything suddenly, terrifyingly real, I wondered what victory really looked like. Was it Michael's destruction? Or was it simply surviving this with my dignity intact? Outside, a mockingbird sang through its repertoire of stolen songs, and I thought about how we all carry pieces of other people's music, playing it back in our own voices until we forget what was ours to begin with. Gabriel decided to arrive during Hurricane Marina. Of course he did. Even in utero, my son had his father's flair for drama, though I hoped that would be the only trait he'd inherit. The rain lashed against the hospital windows as I gripped the bed rails, Grandma Lucille on one side and Ethan on the other. "Just like your mama," Grandma muttered as another contraction rolled through me. "She came during Betsy, in 65. Lewis women never do anything the easy way." 18 hours later, Gabriel Lewis entered the world screaming his displeasure at the entire situation. When they placed him on my chest, this tiny, perfect, furious person, everything else fell away. The lawsuit, Michael, the viral video, the shame. None of it mattered compared to those impossibly small fingers wrapping around mine. "He's got your stubborn chin," Ethan observed from his chair by the window, where he'd maintained a respectful distance during the more intimate moments. He'd driven us through the storm when my water broke, never complaining as I cursed his ancestors and threatened his manhood during particularly bad contractions. "Poor kid," I managed, exhausted but unable to stop staring at my son. My son. The words felt foreign and perfect all at once. The next morning, as I was learning to breastfeed and marveling at Gabriel's ability to sound like a pterodactyl, Michael and Olivia walked into my hospital room like they owned it. Which, technically, Michael's family did. Carter Memorial Hospital was named after his grandfather. Get out. My voice was calm, which seemed to surprise Michael more than anger would have. Ariana, we need to discuss security, I called, not loudly but firmly. New mother hormones apparently came with a side of absolute clarity about boundaries. But Michael stepped forward, his eyes on Gabriel. I have rights. You have nothing. Sophia materialized in the doorway like an avenging angel in a power suit, despite it being 7 a.m. on a Sunday. Mr. Carter, any communication with my client goes through me. And Miss Brooks, I believe there's a restraining order with your name on it after that charming affidavit you signed. What happened next surprised everyone. Olivia started crying. Not delicate tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs. I'm sorry, she gasped out. I'm so sorry, Ariana. He made me. I never wanted. Michael grabbed her arm, trying to pull her from the room, but she wrenched away. No, I'm done. I'm done being your puppet. She looked at me, mascara streaming. Check your email. I sent everything. They left in a flurry of threats, Michael, and broken sobs, Olivia, leaving us in a silence broken only by Gabriel's snuffling against my chest. Well, Grandma said after a moment, that was better than cable television. That evening, while Gabriel slept in his bassinet and the hurricane finally moved inland, I read Olivia's emails. 23 documents detailing Michael's financial manipulations, his affairs, plural, not just with her, and most damning, his plan to declare Gabriel illegitimate using falsified evidence of my supposed infidelity. But there was more. Buried in her confessions was a single line that changed everything. Nathan knew. Nathan has always known. He's been planning this for years. I looked at my son, so small and perfect and unaware of the chess game being played around him. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving that peculiar clarity that only comes after chaos. The air smelled clean and new, full of possibility. We're going to be okay, baby boy, I whispered. Mama's going to make sure of it. Ethan stirred in his chair, where he'd been dozing. Did you say something? Just making promises I intend to keep, I said. And for the first time in months, I meant it. The boardroom at Carter Holding smelled like old money and new fear. I sat at the mahogany table in my mother's vintage Chanel suit. Grandma had insisted, saying if I was going to war, I should dress like a queen. Gabriel was 3 months old now, safely at home with Grandma, but I carried his photo in my pocket like a talisman. Miss Lewis, the chairman began, his discomfort obvious, while we appreciate your position as guardian of young Gabriel's interests, surely you understand that board meetings aren't what? Sophia interrupted smoothly. Aren't places for the legal representative of your second largest shareholder? Because I have documentation that suggests otherwise. The room shifted uncomfortably. Michael sat across from me, his golden boy facade cracking at the edges. The past months had not been kind to him. Federal investigators had taken an interest in those financial documents Olivia had provided, and whispers of embezzlement had sent stock prices tumbling. Perhaps, Nathan suggested from his seat at the far end, we should hear what Miss Lewis has to say. After all, she represents significant holdings now. As I began presenting my analysis of the company's financials, those late nights studying with Ethan had paid off. I noticed something others had missed. The embezzlement went deeper than Michael. The patterns pointed to someone else, someone who'd been playing a longer game. The Henderson development, I said, pulling up the documents. The Riverside project, the Tchoupitoulas complex. All of them have the same irregularities, but they predate Michael's involvement by years. The room went silent. Nathan's face had gone very still. What are you suggesting? The chairman asked. I'm suggesting that someone has been slowly bleeding this company for over a decade. Someone with just enough access to move money, but not enough oversight to get caught. Until now. Michael's head snapped toward his half-brother. Nathan? The meeting devolved into chaos after that. Accusations flew, lawyers were called, and through it all, Nathan sat perfectly still, a small smile playing at his lips. As security escorted him out, he paused by my chair. Well played, Ariana, he murmured. Though you might want to check who really sent those documents. Olivia was just the messenger. That night, I found Ethan waiting on Grandma's porch with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Heard you caused quite a stir today, he said, pouring generous amounts. The whole French Quarter is buzzing about the Carter Empire imploding. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, I admitted, sinking into the rocking chair beside him. I just wanted to protect Gabriel's interests. You did more than that. His voice was warm with something that might have been pride. You exposed years of corruption. That took courage. Or stupidity. I sipped the wine, letting its warmth spread through my chest. I made enemies today, powerful ones. You also showed them you're not someone to be underestimated. He turned to face me fully. Ariana, there's something I need to tell you about why I really left law. My stomach clenched. Not another betrayal. I couldn't handle another betrayal. I was the one who drafted the first version of Michael's prenup. Years ago, when he was engaged to someone else. I knew what kind of man he was, what he was capable of, and I still helped him protect his assets over people. He ran his hand through his hair. I quit the next day, but I've been carrying that guilt ever since. When I heard what happened to you, you felt responsible, I finished. I felt like maybe I could finally make something right. He met my eyes, but somewhere along the way, it stopped being about guilt. Ariana, Gabriel's cry cut through the night, carried on the river breeze from the house. I stood, touched Ethan's shoulder gently. Hold that thought? As I walked inside to tend to my son, I realized that for the first time since my wedding day, I was curious about tomorrow. The truth, when it finally came, arrived in a FedEx envelope on a Tuesday morning. No dramatic confrontation, no stormy revelations, just Grandma signing for a package while I fed Gabriel mashed sweet potatoes that he seemed determined to wear rather than eat. Sophia needs to see this, Grandma said, her face grave as she scanned the contents. The documents were from Nathan's lawyer, a full confession, pleading guilty to embezzlement charges, but with one caveat: he wanted to meet with me, alone. Absolutely not, Ethan said when I told him. We were in his coffee shop after hours, Gabriel sleeping in his carrier while we went over the quarterly reports for my event planning business. What had started as a distraction had somehow blossomed into actual success. I have to, I said. There's something he's not saying, something about Olivia. When I met Nathan at the parish jail, he looked smaller than I remembered. Prison orange didn't suit anyone, but on Nathan, it seemed particularly cruel. She never betrayed you, he said without preamble. Olivia. I forced her to write that affidavit, threatened to destroy her sister's business if she didn't play along. Why? I leaned forward, needing to understand. Why any of this? Because Michael took everything from me. My father's love, my mother's dignity, my birthright. His laugh was bitter. Did you know my mother was his secretary? That my father only acknowledged me because his wife couldn't have more children after Michael? That doesn't excuse... No, it doesn't. He met my eyes. But watching Michael self-destruct, watching him lose everything to the woman he discarded, that was poetic justice I couldn't resist orchestrating. You used me, yes, but you also used the opportunity. Don't pretend you're purely a victim here, Ariana. You're stronger than that. I left the jail feeling hollow. That evening, I tracked down Olivia's number and called. She answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. I know about Nathan, I said. I know he forced you. Silence. Then, I still chose Michael over our friendship. That part was real. Why? Because I loved him. God help me, I still do. Her voice broke, but he's incapable of loving anyone but himself. It took me losing everything to see that. We talked for an hour. About Michael, about the baby she'd lost years ago. The one Nathan had mentioned in passing. The one that had started her descent into his manipulations. About starting over. I'm leaving New Orleans, she said finally. Starting fresh in Seattle. I wanted you to know that your friendship meant something. Before. After we hung up, I sat in Gabriel's nursery, watching him sleep. The mobile above his crib, tiny boats sailing endless circles, cast shadows on the wall. Ethan found me there. You okay? He'd taken to checking on us in the evenings, bringing dinner and conversation and a steadiness I'd come to depend on. Olivia's leaving. Nathan's in jail. Michael's facing federal charges. I laughed, but it came out wrong. I won. So why do I feel so empty? He sat on the floor beside the rocking chair, his presence solid and warm. Because you're a good person. Good people don't celebrate other people's destruction, even when it's deserved. Michael came by yesterday, I admitted. While you were at the shop, he wanted to see Gabriel. Ethan's jaw tightened. And I let him, supervised, for 5 minutes. I met his eyes expecting judgment. He's still Gabriel's father. You're a better person than I am, Ethan said quietly. I would have slammed the door in his face. No, you wouldn't have. I reached for his hand. You would have done exactly what I did, because you would have thought about Gabriel first. That night, after Ethan left and Gabriel was down for the night, I stood on Grandma's porch and watched the Mississippi roll by. Somewhere out there, Olivia was packing her life into boxes. Nathan was lying on a narrow cot. Michael was probably with his lawyers, planning appeals. And I was here exactly where I'd started, but completely different. Tomorrow, I had 3 events to plan, a baby to raise, and a life to live. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but maybe that was the point. The courtroom smelled like lemon polish and desperation. 6 months had passed since Nathan's arrest, and now we were here for the final custody hearing. Michael, out on bail pending his federal trial, sat with his team of lawyers looking like a shadow of his former golden self. I sat with Sophia and tried not to fidget with my mother's wedding ring, which I'd taken to wearing on my right hand, a reminder of the strength that ran through Lewis women. Your Honor, Michael's lead attorney began, my client acknowledges his mistakes but maintains his parental rights. Mistakes? I couldn't help the laugh that escaped. Is that what we're calling embezzlement and attempted fraud now? Judge Cornelius, a stern woman with silver hair and knowing eyes, raised her hand. Miss Lewis, you'll have your turn. But my turn, when it came, wasn't what anyone expected. I stood, Gabriel's photo in my pocket, and pulled out a letter. One I'd written at 3 a.m. when the baby wouldn't sleep, and clarity came with exhaustion. Your Honor, I'd like to read something my mother wrote to me before she died. I was 12. The letter wasn't from my mother to me. It was from me to Gabriel, written in the style of my mother's wisdom, about forgiveness and strength and the complexity of love. My darling son, I read, my voice steady. One day you'll ask about your father, and I'll tell you the truth, that he was a flawed man who made terrible choices. But I'll also tell you that you are not his choices. You are not my pain. You are your own person, with your own light, and no one's darkness can diminish that. The courtroom was silent. Even Michael's lawyers had stopped shuffling papers. I stand here not asking you to punish Michael Carter, I continued. I stand here asking you to protect Gabriel Lewis, to give him the chance to know his father, if and when Michael proves he can be one. But until that day, I ask for sole custody, with supervised visitation when appropriate. Judge Cornelius studied me for a long moment. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to say? Michael stood slowly. For the first time in years, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Vulnerable, uncertain, real. He cleared his throat. I was raised to value legacy over love, money over meaning. I don't know how to be a father, but maybe that's why I need to learn. Supervised visitation once monthly, the judge ruled, to be revisited in 1 year, pending Mr. Carter's legal situation. Sole custody to Miss Lewis. As we filed out, Michael caught my arm. The letter. Your mother didn't write it. No, I admitted. But she would have. That's what matters. That evening, Grandma Lucille cooked a feast. Gumbo and cornbread and pecan pie. Ethan came by with champagne, and we sat on the porch, watching Gabriel try to eat his own feet while the sun set over the river. You did good today, Cher, Grandma said, using the endearment she saved for special occasions. Your mama would be proud. I almost feel sorry for him, I admitted. Michael, is that crazy? Pity and forgiveness ain't the same thing, Grandma said. You can feel sorry for a snake, but you still don't let it in your house. Ethan raised his glass. To Gabriel Lewis. May he inherit his mother's strength and his great-grandmother's wisdom? And what about his father, I asked. May he inherit the chance to choose differently, Ethan said after a pause. That's all any of us can hope for. As if in agreement, Gabriel let out a burp that would have done a trucker proud. And we all laughed. The kind of laughter that comes after storms. Full of relief and hope and the promise of calmer seas. 1 year later, I stood again at the edge of the Mississippi. But everything had changed. Gabriel toddled beside me, his chubby hand gripped firmly in mine as he pointed at the boats with the kind of wonder only a 14-month-old could muster. Bo, Bo, he shrieked with delight, and I couldn't help but laugh. That's right, baby. Boats. The afternoon sun painted the river gold, the same color as the small box in my pocket. Ethan had asked me to meet him here, at the spot where we'd scattered the ashes of my old life and watched new dreams take root. Behind us, the French Quarter house I'd bought with the settlement money from Carter Holdings stood proud. Not grand like Michael's mansion had been, but real and mine and full of the kind of life I'd actually wanted. My event planning business had grown beyond my wildest hopes. Turns out, People loved hiring the woman who'd turned personal catastrophe into triumph. It gave them hope that their own celebrations could weather any storm. Michael had started writing to Gabriel letters for when he was older, taking accountability for his choices. He was serving a reduced sentence, having cooperated with federal investigators. Nathan, surprisingly, had become a mentor to other inmates, teaching financial literacy. Even Olivia had found peace in Seattle, sending Christmas cards with pictures of her new life. "Mama!" Gabriel's voice pulled me back. Ethan was walking toward us, carrying a picnic basket and wearing that smile that had become my favorite sight. "Sorry I'm late," he said, setting down the basket to swing Gabriel up into his arms. My son, who'd become our son in every way that mattered, giggled and grabbed Ethan's nose. "You're right on time," I said, and meant it. As we spread out the picnic blanket, Ethan caught my hand. "Ariana, I need to ask you something." I knew what was coming. Had known since I'd found the ring box hidden behind the coffee beans in his shop. But I let him have his moment. This man who'd shown me that love could be steady and sure and still exciting. "You've already said yes," he laughed when he saw my face. "Haven't you?" "Maybe," I grinned, "but ask anyway." So he did, right there with Gabriel trying to eat sand and boats passing by and the ghost of my old life watching from somewhere across the water. And I said yes, not because I needed saving or completing, but because I'd learned that choosing happiness wasn't weakness. It was the ultimate strength. Later, as we walked home with Gabriel asleep in Ethan's arms, I thought about that girl in the wedding dress who'd thought her world was ending. She'd been right, in a way. That world had ended. This one, messy and real and entirely mine, was so much better. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked. I looked at my family, at the home waiting for us, at the business cards in my pocket for tomorrow's client meeting. I thought about Michael's letters stacked in Gabriel's future box, about forgiveness that didn't require forgetting, about the way broken things sometimes reformed into something stronger. "I'm thinking," I said, "that Grandma was wrong. Lewis women don't do things the hard way. We do them our way, and that makes all the difference." The river carried our laughter downstream, toward the Gulf, toward tomorrow, toward all the possibilities we hadn't dared to imagine when this journey began. My name is Natalie Carter. There was a time when I was just a girl with paint-stained hands, lost under the glittering lights of Manhattan. But then, life threw me to the very bottom. When even my own husband turned his back on me, and his family tried to take my children away. The breaking point came the night I stood in my tiny kitchen, custody papers in my hands, and heard my husband say, "I don't know who you are anymore. Maybe time apart is what we need." That was the moment I realized no one was coming to save me. I had to save myself. Before I share my full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe if you've ever overcome hardship. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The champagne flute trembled in my paint-stained fingers. I'd scrubbed them raw in the gallery bathroom, but oil paint has a way of claiming you, marking you as its own. Around me, Manhattan's elite glided through the gala like swans on a golden pond, and I, Natalie Carter from Newark, stood frozen near my paintings, feeling like a sparrow who'd crashed through the wrong window. "These pieces lack refinement," a woman in diamonds murmured to her companion, not bothering to lower her voice. "You can tell the artist is untrained." My cheeks burned. 3 jobs: waiting tables, cleaning offices, teaching kids art classes, all to afford 1 semester at the School of Visual Arts. My professor had insisted I come tonight. "The Whitmore Foundation wants to see your work," he'd said. "This could change everything." I was turning to leave when I saw him. He stood before my largest canvas, a piece I'd painted after my mother's death, all raw reds and desperate blacks. And his face held something I'd never seen in this crowd. Not the polite interest of potential buyers or the calculating gaze of critics. He looked moved. "It's grief," I found myself saying, stepping beside him, "but also survival, the way pain transforms into something else if you let it." He turned to me then, and I forgot to breathe. Dark hair, eyes like winter sky, the kind of bone structure that belonged on museum walls. But it was his expression that caught me, open, almost vulnerable. "You're the artist, not a question." He extended his hand. "Ethan Whitmore." The name hit me like cold water. Whitmore, as in the Whitmore Hotels, the Whitmore Foundation, the Whitmore family who owned half of Manhattan. "Natalie," I managed, shaking his hand. His grip was warm, steady. "Your work?" He paused, searching for words. "It's honest. Everything else here feels like it's trying to sell me something. Yours just is." The crowd had noticed us. Whispers rippled through the room like wind through wheat. Ethan Whitmore talking to the nobody artist, the girl with paint under her fingernails. "Would you have dinner with me?" he asked suddenly, loudly enough that nearby conversation stopped. "Tomorrow night?" A woman who could only be his mother materialized beside us, her smile sharp as winter ice. "Ethan, darling, the Vanderbilts are waiting." He didn't look away from me. "Natalie? Tomorrow?" Every instinct screamed, "Run." This wasn't my world. But something in his eyes, a loneliness that matched my own, made me nod. "I work at Rosie's Diner in Queens until 9, I said, chin lifted. If he wanted me, he'd get the truth. His smile transformed his face. "Then, I'll see you at 9:15. He came every night for 2 weeks. The bell above Rosie's door would chime at 9:15, and there he'd be, $1,000 shoes stepping over cracked linoleum, sitting in the booth with the duct-taped seats. "You know they have restaurants in Manhattan," I said one night, refilling his coffee for the 3rd time. "They don't have you." Rosie, who'd owned the place for 30 years, watched us like we were her favorite soap opera. "That boy's got it bad," she'd mutter, sliding extra pie onto Ethan's plate. He told me about his life in fragments, board meetings at 16, trust funds that felt like golden cages, a father who saw him as an heir, not a son, a mother who collected people like art pieces. I told him about mine, how dad left when I was 7, how mom cleaned hotels, maybe even his family's, until her back gave out, how she'd save quarters in a jar marked Natalie's Dreams even when we needed groceries. "She sounds remarkable," Ethan said softly. She was. The grief still caught me sometimes, sharp as broken glass. "She died last year. Never saw me get into art school." His hand found mine across the table. "She sees." On our 20th night at Rosie's, the winter rain turned to snow. The diner emptied early, leaving just us and the hiss of the coffee machine. Ethan pulled out a small velvet box. "I know it's fast," he said, "but I've spent 28 years being careful, being what everyone expected. You're the first real thing in my life." The ring was simple. A single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. Not the boulder his mother would expect. "Your family," I started, "will adapt or they won't. I'm done living for them." He slid out of the booth, knelt on the sticky floor. "Marry me, Natalie. Let me be real with you." Rosie appeared with champagne she'd been hiding for her retirement. "About time," she declared. "Yes or no, honey? Boys' knees ain't getting any younger on that floor." I laughed through tears. Yes. The storm outside stopped, as if the world held its breath with us. We married at St. Sebastian's in Brooklyn. 12 people attended. My friends from school, Rosie, Ethan's college roommate who defied the Whitmore ban. The church smelled of old wood and hope. I wore my mother's wedding dress, altered to fit. Ethan cried when he saw me. His family's absence screamed louder than any protest. The gossip columns ran wild. Hotel heir's hasty marriage to nobody. But in our tiny apartment above the Korean grocery, we built a world they couldn't touch. Ethan started his own firm, consulting for boutique hotels. I painted between shifts, the spare bedroom reeking of turpentine and dreams. When the pregnancy test showed positive, we sat on the fire escape, watching pigeons court on the opposite roof. "We're having a baby," I whispered. "We're having a baby," he repeated, wonder in his voice. Lucas came during a spring thunderstorm, screaming his arrival to the world. Ethan held him first, tears streaming. "He's perfect. Look what we made." 3 months later, a package arrived. No return address, but the Whitmore crest pressed into purple wax. Inside, a silver rattle worth more than our rent, and a card in Vivian Whitmore's precise script, "For our grandson." "It's a peace offering," Ethan said hopefully. But I knew better. Rattlesnakes rattle before they strike. Ethan rebuilt bridges slowly. Sunday dinners at the estate, where Vivian would coo over Lucas while studying me like a specimen. "Are you sure you're feeding him enough, dear? He seems small." Or, "Such an interesting choice, raising children in that neighborhood." I'd smile, nod, survive. For Ethan, for Lucas, for the family we were building. "She's trying," Ethan would say on the drive home. "She's planning," I'd think but never said. 2 years passed in this careful dance. I got my first gallery show, small but mine. Ethan's business grew. Lucas learned to walk, then run, chasing pigeons on the roof. We were happy in the way of people who've built something from nothing. Then she arrived. "Family helps family," Vivian announced, ushering Samantha Monroe into our lives like a Trojan horse wrapped in Chanel. "Poor dear's divorcing that awful man in California. She needs somewhere to land." Samantha had honey hair and a laugh like wind chimes. Ethan's cousin from the California branch, though the family tree seemed fuzzy when I pressed. She air-kissed my cheeks, proclaimed my apartment charmingly authentic, and moved into our guest room, my studio, within the week. Just temporarily, she promised, squeezing my hands. You're an angel for this. She inserted herself like sugar in coffee, sweet, dissolving, impossible to remove. Suddenly, she was picking up Lucas from daycare when I worked late, organizing Ethan's files because you must be so overwhelmed, Natalie. Offering to help with my next show since she'd dabbled in curation at Berkeley. The changes came slowly. She'd rearrange my paintings while I was out. Better flow, she'd explain. She'd cook elaborate dinners when I planned simple ones, sighing. Ethan mentioned he's been craving real food. She's helping? Ethan said when I tried to voice my unease. God knows we need it with the baby coming. Oh yes, I was pregnant again. The timing felt like another cosmic joke. At my gallery opening, Samantha appeared in a dress identical to mine, but in white, making me look like her shadow. She guided viewers to my paintings with proprietary pride, explaining my primitive technique and raw, untutored talent. Such courage, I heard her tell a critic. Taking on art without formal training, Ethan finds it so refreshing after all that manufactured sophistication he grew up with. But the moment that changed everything came later. Lucas had nightmares, crying for mama. I rushed to his room to find Samantha already there, holding him. Shh, baby, she cooed. Sammy's here. I want mama, Lucas sobbed. I know, sweetness, but mama's tired. Let's let her sleep. I took my son from her arms. Her smile never wavered, but something flickered in her eyes. Victory. That night, I searched property records online. Samantha Monroe wasn't Ethan's cousin, wasn't even related. She was the daughter of Richard Whitmore's law partner, useful, connected, but not blood. The serpent had shown her scales. The invitation arrived on ivory cardstock, so thick it could cut. The Whitmore Foundation's annual gala. Our names in gold script. After 3 years of exile, we were being welcomed back. This is good, Ethan insisted, adjusting his cufflinks. They're accepting us. Samantha emerged from the guest room. 6 months she'd been there now, holding 2 dresses. Natalie, I picked these up for you. The blue is so practical. Practical. Code for, you'll blend into the wallpaper where you belong. At the gala, I understood. Every other woman shimmered in jeweled tones, while I stood in navy blue like the help. Samantha floated past in emerald green, her hand on Ethan's elbow as she introduced him to investors. And this is Natalie, she'd add, an afterthought. Ethan's wife. She paints. The word shrank in her mouth. Paints. Like a child's hobby. I escaped to the bathroom, hands shaking. In the mirror, a tired woman in a dowdy dress, 5 months pregnant, dark circles under her eyes. When had I become this? There you are. Vivian Whitmore's reflection appeared behind mine. Samantha's been so helpful tonight. She understands this world. Poor Ethan's been struggling without proper support. He has me. Her smile could have frozen champagne. Of course, dear, but men need auxiliary assistance, especially Whitmore men. Back in the ballroom, I found Ethan signing papers at Richard's urging, Samantha at his shoulder. Just formalities, Richard said smoothly. Tax benefits, nothing major. Ethan, I called, what are you signing? Business stuff. He didn't look up. Samantha reviewed it. The floor tilted. Since when did Samantha review our legal documents? In the car home, I tried to explain my fears, but Ethan was flying high on his father's approval, on the promise of family reconciliation. They're helping us, he said. Why can't you see that? Because I'd grown up hungry enough to know, when rich people offer help, there's always a price. And we wouldn't know the cost until the bill came due. Amelia arrived 2 weeks later. I named her for Hope, beloved. But even that joy felt tainted. Ethan missed her birth. An emergency board meeting, Samantha had explained, calling from his phone. So sorry, Natalie. I'll make sure he gets there as soon as possible. He arrived 3 hours after our daughter's first cry, smelling of whiskey and regret. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. But sorry was just another word by then, like love, like family, like trust. The photos arrived in a manila envelope, no return address. Me at the coffee shop with Marcus, my old classmate, who'd helped install my gallery show. His hand on my shoulder as we laughed. The angle made it look intimate. The timestamp, carefully highlighted, showed 2 a.m. It was 2 p.m., I told Ethan, voice steady despite my shaking hands. The timestamp's been altered. Marcus helped me carry paintings. But Samantha had already poisoned the well. I didn't want to say anything, she'd murmured to him. But Natalie's been so distant lately. Ethan's faith in me, once unshakable, cracked like ice in spring. He started working later, coming home smelling of Samantha's perfume from client dinners. He questioned my gallery sales, wondered aloud if Marcus bought pieces out of pity or something else. 3 days after Amelia's first birthday, I woke to silence. Our bank account, frozen. The credit cards, canceled. A letter from Whitmore and Associates informed me that due to suspected financial irregularities, all marital assets were under review. Just until things are sorted, Ethan said, not meeting my eyes. Dad's lawyers think it's best. Your father's lawyers? My voice broke. When did they become involved in our marriage? He stood by the window, shoulders rigid. When you started keeping secrets. That night, Lucas had a fever. The pharmacy wouldn't take my canceled cards. I emptied my coat pockets for crumpled bills, counting change while the line behind me grew. 23.47. Just enough. Mommy, why are you crying? Lucas asked in his fevered haze. Happy tears, baby. You're going to feel better soon. But I knew we were past medicine's help. This sickness had infected everything. The final blow came with legal precision. Vivian arrived with papers and a practiced sympathy smile. Postpartum depression is so serious, she cooed. We just want what's best for the children. Custody evaluation, psychiatric assessment, words that meant, we're taking your babies. I stood in my kitchen, my mother's cast iron pan still on the stove, Lucas's drawings on the fridge, Amelia's bottles drying in the rack, and felt the world tilt off its axis. Ethan, I whispered when he came home, please, you know me. You know I don't know anything anymore. He wouldn't look at our children, wouldn't look at me. Maybe sometime apart, maybe that's what we need. Samantha stood in the doorway of my studio. Her room now, victory written in every line of her body. 24 hours. That's what the eviction notice gave me. 24 hours to pack up a life. I moved into Mom's old storage unit in Newark, the one I'd kept paying for out of nostalgia and stubborn hope. Between molding boxes and forgotten furniture, I created a nest for my babies. Lucas asked why we were camping. Amelia just clung to me, sensing the change. Rock bottom tastes like government cheese and sounds like your son asking why daddy doesn't call. On the third night, searching for blankets, I found Mom's wooden box. Inside, every gallery program from my student shows, $3,000 in bonds she'd hidden, and a note, for when you need to fly, baby girl. I sobbed on the concrete floor until I had no tears left. Then I stood up. The pawn shop gave me enough for a sewing machine. I'd learned from Mom, making our clothes last beyond their natural life. But now I had artist's eyes, sculptor's hands. I created children's clothes that were miniature artworks, practical magic. Mama's designs, Lucas called them, proud. A friend from art school let me use her Instagram. Orders trickled in, one dress at a time, one customer referral leading to 2. I worked while the baby slept, pins between my teeth, determined. The universe sometimes sends messengers. Mine came as Helen Chen, fashion blogger with 2 million followers, who bought a dress for her daughter at a Brooklyn market. Who made this? She demanded. I did. Do you have a business card, a website, anything? I shook my head. Just this. She bought every piece I had, posted photos that night. By morning, I had 500 orders. I couldn't fill them all, not from a storage unit with 2 toddlers. But Mrs. Rodriguez from the bodega offered her back room. Pay me when you can, she said. Mothers help mothers. 6 months became a year became 3. My fingers bled from needles, but each drop was mine. Not Whitmore money, not charity, mine. The workshop grew. I hired other single mothers, women who understood survival. We called ourselves Thread of Hope. The name fit. Then I found the photos, the real ones. A private investigator, conscience finally winning, slipped them under my workshop door. Samantha and Richard Whitmore. Date stamps from 5 years ago, hotel receipts. The whole sick truth. She'd been Richard's mistress, promised Ethan as payment for silence. Every manipulation, every lie, every stolen moment with my children, planned. I threw up until my stomach was empty, then sat with the evidence spread before me. I could destroy them. One call to the press, and the Whitmore empire would shatter. But I looked at my children, asleep in the corner of my workshop, my kingdom built from nothing, and chose differently. I would build something they couldn't touch. Something so bright it would eclipse their darkness. Not for revenge, for redemption. 20 years is long enough to build an empire. Mine rose from a storage unit floor to a glass tower overlooking Central Park. Thread of Hope dressed presidents' daughters and movie stars. We employed 10,000 women worldwide. My face graced magazine covers, from homeless to haute couture. Lucas, now 23, ran our charitable foundation. Amelia, 20, designed our youth line. They'd grown up in workshop back rooms, understanding that dignity comes from work, not birthright. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Carter? There's an Ethan Whitmore here. Says it's urgent." 20 years since I'd heard that name in my office. My hands didn't shake anymore. "Send him up." He entered like a ghost of expensive suits, thin, gray-threaded, hollow-eyed, the golden boy tarnished beyond recognition. "Natalie." His voice cracked on my name. I gestured to a chair, waited. I know the truth now. Words tumbled out. "Samantha, she and my father, she destroyed everything, took everything. The company's gone. She married me after you left, then divorced me for Dad, then destroyed him too. It was all, God, Natalie, I'm so sorry." 20 years I'd imagined this moment, his apology, his regret. I thought I'd feel vindication. Instead, just quiet sadness for the boy who'd knelt on Rosie's sticky floor. "I know," I said simply. "I've known for 17 years. His face crumpled. "You could have destroyed us." "I was busy building something better." "I don't expect forgiveness," he whispered. I needed you to know. I loved you. I loved you, and I let them convince me otherwise. It's the biggest regret." "Stop." I stood, moved to the window. Below, Manhattan sparkled like scattered diamonds. Do you know what saved me? Not anger, not even love for our children, though that helped. It was realizing I'd never needed you to save me. I'd needed to save myself. "Our children," he repeated. They know about you. I never poisoned that well. If they want a relationship, that's their choice. And us?" I turned back. This man, once my world, now just a stranger, in an expensive suit worth less than the shoes I designed. "There is no us. There's just what we build from the ashes. Natalie, your family's hotels went up for sale last month." I kept my voice steady. "I bought them. All of them. I'm turning them into housing for women escaping domestic violence. Your mother's suite will be a daycare." He stared. "You bought how?" Apparently, I wasn't so untrained after all. He stood on unsteady legs. At the door, he paused. "For what it's worth, you were the only real thing in my life." "I know," I said gently. That was never enough. After he left, I called my children. They came immediately, as they always did. My fierce Lucas, my brilliant Amelia. We stood together at the window, watching the city lights. "You okay, Mom?" Lucas asked. "Yes." And I meant it. We all are. The storage unit girl had built a tower. The sparrow had grown wings of steel. And somewhere in Newark, I swear I could hear my mother laughing. Proud, joyful, free. Love hadn't saved me. I'd saved myself. And that was the greatest love story of all. Rosie's Diner still stands in Queens, though Rosie's granddaughter runs it now. I bring my executive team here sometimes, watching their designer heels navigate the cracked linoleum. We sit in the booth with the duct-taped seats, my booth, and plan how to change the world over coffee that tastes like memories. "Why here?" a new manager once asked. "Because empires can start anywhere," I told her. "Even in places that smell like grease and dreams." The bell chimed. A young woman entered, paint under her fingernails, exhaustion in her eyes. Art student, I bet. Dreamer, fighter, maybe both. I caught Rosie's eye, nodded toward the girl. "Her meal's on me, and if she needs work, I'll let her know Thread of Hope is hiring." Rosie smiled. "We pay it forward, always. That's how sparrows learn to soar, one lifted wing at a time." Lucas called as I left. "Mom, Amelia's design just won the Paris Innovation Award." "Of course it did," I smiled at the sky. "We're Carter women. We don't just survive, we transcend." Above, real sparrows dance between buildings, small and brown and utterly fearless. I watched them navigate the giants of glass and steel, claiming their space in the sky. Not despite their size, because of it. The small ones, I've learned, often fly the highest. They have less weight to carry, more hunger to fuel them. And when they build their nests, they weave them from whatever they find, string and struggle, hope and heartbreak, until they've created something that can weather any storm. My phone buzzed. Another interview request. Another chance to tell young women, you don't need anyone's permission to fly. You just need to trust your wings. I thought of Ethan sometimes. Not with love or hate, just distant recognition. Like seeing a movie you once enjoyed, but can't quite remember why. He'd been a chapter, not my whole story. The prince who taught me I didn't need rescuing. The real fairy tale? It's messier, harder, infinitely more beautiful. It starts with a girl, ends with a woman. And in between is where we learn that happily ever after isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build yourself, one thread of hope at a time. My name is Clara, and for 7 years, I lived only to protect my twins from the man I thought I had buried forever, David Carter. But then, on Christmas night, right in the middle of a glittering party, my daughter stood up, tapped her glass like an adult, and shouted in front of everyone, "I just wish Mommy and Daddy would stop being sad and love each other again." The entire room fell silent, and the truth was laid bare under dozens of watchful eyes. Before I share the rest of my story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe if you've ever fought through pain for the sake of family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happened next. The Christmas card shouldn't have been there. I stood frozen in my tiny Charleston apartment doorway, staring at the elegant cream envelope wedged between bills and grocery store flyers. Margaret Carter's handwriting hadn't changed in 7 years, still that perfect cursive that made everything look like a wedding invitation. "Mom, can we have hot chocolate?" Mia's voice drifted from the living room where she and Noah were building a blanket fort. "In a minute, sweetheart." My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. "My dear Clara," it began. "Christmas isn't the same without family. Please come to our annual party on December 23rd. The children are welcome." I've thought of them often. The children. My throat tightened. How did she know? How did she find us? I sank onto the kitchen stool, the card heavy in my hands. 7 years of careful distance, of building a life without David Carter's shadow. And now this. Through the archway, I watched my twins argue over fort architecture. Noah's dark hair falling into his eyes exactly the way his father's used to. God, they looked like him. More every day. The memories came unbidden. David, at 24, brilliant and driven, promising me the world between law school classes. His hands in my hair, his voice urgent against my ear. "After the bar exam, Clara. After I make partner. After. Always after." The day I told him about the pregnancy, snow had been falling outside his downtown office. I'd practiced my words 100 times, but they still came out wrong, tumbling over each other like scattered pearls. He'd sat behind his mahogany desk, already playing the part of successful attorney, and his face had gone carefully blank. "This isn't the right time, Clara. You understand that, don't you?" I understood. I understood that his career trajectory didn't include a girlfriend with morning sickness. I understood that the partnership track at Morrison & Associates didn't accommodate diaper changes. I understood that when he said, "We'll figure something out," he meant I would figure it out alone. So I did. "Mommy." Noah appeared at my elbow, his small face concerned. "Why are you sad?" I forced a smile, ruffling his hair. "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking." "About what? About your father? About the grandmother you've never met? About the life we might have had in that big house on Charleston Street? About whether we should go to a Christmas party," I said instead. 3 days later, I stood outside the Carter mansion, gripping my children's hands like lifelines. The house rose before us, all Southern elegance and old money, wrapped in white lights that made it glow against the December dusk. "It's like a castle," Mia breathed. "Can we live here?" Noah asked. My laugh came out strangled. "No, baby. We're just visiting." I'd changed my mind a dozen times. Pride said, "Stay home." Curiosity said, "Go." The children tipped the balance. They'd been asking about grandparents since kindergarten started, watching their classmates get picked up by doting grandmas. Margaret answered the door herself, and the years fell away. She looked older, silver threading through her auburn hair, but her smile was exactly as I remembered, warm and genuine in a way her sons had never quite been. "Clara." She pulled me into a hug before I could step back. "Oh, my dear, sweet girl." Then her eyes found the twins, and I watched her face transform. She saw it immediately. David's eyes, David's stubborn chin, David's long fingers already showing promise of his height. "These must be..." Her voice caught. "Mia and Noah," I managed. "My children. Your grandchildren," hung unspoken between us. Margaret knelt to their level, her silk dress pooling on the marble floor. "I'm so pleased to meet you both. Are you hungry? I have cookies shaped like reindeer." And just like that, my carefully constructed walls began to crack. The house overwhelmed me with memories. Every room held ghosts. The library where David first kissed me, the conservatory where we talked until dawn, the kitchen where Margaret taught me her secret recipe for chess pie. "Nothing's changed," I murmured. Margaret's hand touched my shoulder. Some things have. The party buzzed with Charleston society, but Margaret kept us close, introducing the twins as Clara's beautiful children, deflecting questions with practiced ease. I began to relax, watching Mia charm a state senator and Noah discover the chocolate fountain. Then the front door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and my past walking back into my present. David stood in the doorway, snow dusting his black coat, looking like every foolish dream I'd tried to bury. 7 years had only improved him, the boyish softness gone, replaced by sharp angles and quiet authority. His eyes found mine across the room, and I watched the exact moment he saw the children. His face went white. The briefcase slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a thud that silenced conversations. "Clara?" His voice cracked on my name. The silence stretched until Margaret's laugh cut through it, bright and false. "David, darling, you're just in time for dinner." But David wasn't listening. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his eyes never leaving the twins. Noah, oblivious to the tension, looked up from his plate of cookies. "Are you my mommy's friend?" he asked. The sound David made was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I saw him catalog every familiar feature. His mother's nose, his father's ears, his own eyes staring back from 2 small faces. Clara. Now his voice was deadly quiet. "Outside. Now." I followed him onto the veranda, aware of every eye tracking our exit. The cold hit like a slap, but not as hard as his first words. 7 years. 7 goddamn years, and you never told me? You didn't want to know. The words came out steadier than I felt. You made that very clear. I never said, you didn't have to say it. The dam burst, 7 years of hurt flooding out. You sat there behind your precious desk and looked at me like I was a problem to be solved, a distraction from your 5-year plan. That's not... He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture achingly familiar. Christ, Clara. They're my children. My children. How could you not tell me? I laughed, bitter and sharp. When should I have told you, David? When you stopped returning my calls? When your secretary said you were too busy to see me? When I was throwing up in gas station bathrooms, working 3 jobs to pay for prenatal vitamins? I would have, what, married me out of obligation? Given up your partnership track? We both know that's a lie. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Good. I had the right to know. And I had the right to protect them from feeling like an inconvenience. My voice broke. Do you know what you said to me? This isn't the right time. Like they were a merger you could postpone. The door opened behind us. Margaret stepped out, her face carefully neutral. Perhaps we should continue this inside. The children are asking for their mother. David's jaw clenched. This conversation isn't over. It was over 7 years ago, I said. You just weren't paying attention. Back inside, I found the twins decorating cookies with a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, diamond earrings catching the light. She looked up as we entered, and David's hand found the small of her back. Emily, he said, voice carefully controlled. This is Clara. Clara, my fiancée, Emily Westwood. The crack in my chest widened into a chasm. Emily Westwood was everything I wasn't. Polished, poised, and perfectly comfortable in the Carter world. She smiled at me with laser precision, extending a manicured hand. David's mentioned you, she said, which was interesting since he'd apparently failed to mention our children. And these must be your twins. How charming. Charming. Like they were accessories. I watched her watch them, saw her calculate and recalibrate. The children were a complication she hadn't factored into her business plan marriage, because that's what this was. I could see it in the way they stood together, careful and choreographed. No messy history, no inconvenient emotions. We should go, I said, but Mia chose that moment to run over, cookie crumbs on her best dress. Mommy, Mrs. Margaret says we can see the music room. Can we? Please? David knelt before I could stop him, his voice gentle. Do you like music? Noah plays piano, Mia announced, and I sing. Mommy says I got it from... She stopped, looking at me uncertainly. From your father, I finished quietly. Emily's smile tightened. David's hand shook as he touched Mia's hair. I play piano too, he said. Margaret orchestrated the rest with expert precision, herding us all to the music room, where the grand piano waited like a shrine. I remembered David playing it, remembered lying underneath while Chopin flowed over me like water. Now I watched him sit with Noah, their hands identical on the keys, and felt my heart fracture along familiar fault lines. He's quite talented, Emily observed beside me. Natural ability clearly runs in families. Don't. My voice came out sharper than intended. She raised an eyebrow. I'm simply making an observation. This must be difficult for you. You have no idea what this is for me. Perhaps not. She studied her engagement ring, 3 carats naturally. But I know what it is for David. He's built a life, Clara, a good life. We're opening a firm together, did he mention? Corporate law, very lucrative. We've just bought property here in Charleston. Each word landed like a small stone. A life, a firm, a future that had no room for complications like us. Why are you telling me this? Her smile was almost sympathetic. Because I think you're a smart woman. Smart enough to know that some stories don't get second chapters. Across the room, Noah laughed at something David said, the sound bright and pure. When was the last time I'd heard him laugh like that? Margaret appeared at my elbow. Clara, dear, might I show you something? I followed her gratefully, leaving Emily to her victory. In the hallway, Margaret squeezed my hand. Don't let her rattle you. That woman doesn't know my son as well as she thinks she does. It doesn't matter. I'm not here for David. Margaret's look was too knowing. Aren't you? The next week passed in a blur of normalcy that felt anything but normal. David had my number now, Margaret's doing, and used it with surgical precision. Could he take the twins to the aquarium? Noah mentioned wanting to learn chess. Mia loved art. There was an exhibit at the museum. Each request was perfectly reasonable. Each one twisted the knife deeper. I don't trust him, I told my reflection, applying concealer to hide the sleepless nights. But the twins were blooming under his attention like flowers in sudden sun. Noah, my quiet boy, chattered nonstop about Daddy's cases. Mia drew pictures of their outings, always placing David between us like a bridge. Emily escalated her campaign with equal precision. She appeared at school pickup, designer heels clicking on asphalt, bearing gifts, books for Noah, hair ribbons for Mia, always just thoughtful enough that refusing seemed petty. You're being paranoid, my sister said over phone. Maybe she's genuinely trying. But I knew strategic maneuvering when I saw it. Emily was establishing position, showing the twins and everyone watching that she could play mommy better than the actual mother. The breaking point came at the park. I arrived to collect the twins from David's custody Saturday and found them playing soccer. Emily coaching in designer athleisure. David cheering from the sidelines like a proper suburban dad. The perfect family tableau, except I was standing outside it. Mommy, Mia spotted me first. Miss Emily taught us headers. Watch. I watched. I smiled. I thanked Emily through gritted teeth. But when Noah said, "Can Miss Emily come to our Christmas recital?" something inside me snapped. We'll see, I managed, but David must have seen something in my face. Emily, why don't you take the twins for ice cream? Clara and I need to discuss schedules. She hesitated, clearly not wanting to leave us alone, but the twins were already pulling her toward the ice cream truck. David waited until they were out of earshot. Say it, he commanded. Say what? Whatever is burning you up inside, just say it. The words erupted. I hate this. I hate watching you play happy family with her. I hate that my children think she hung the moon. I hate that you can waltz back in and be the fun parent while I've been here for every fever, every nightmare, every hard moment. You think I wanted to miss those moments? I think you chose to miss them. He stepped closer, and suddenly I could smell his cologne. Different now, more expensive, but underneath still fundamentally him. I chose wrong, he said quietly. Is that what you need to hear? I chose wrong, Clara. But I can't change the past. I can only try to fix the future. With Emily? With your perfect corporate life? His laugh was bitter. Perfect. Right. You want to know a secret? The night before I proposed to her, I drove past your old apartment building, sat there for 2 hours like a stalker, trying to work up the courage to knock. But you didn't? No, I didn't. His hand lifted like he might touch my face, then dropped. I'm a coward, Clara. Always have been when it comes to you. That night, I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I Googled Emily Westwood. The first hits were professional, corporate headshots, law review articles, charity gala photos. But I kept digging, driven by instinct and insomnia. Page 3 yielded gold, a Seattle Times article about a messy divorce, financial irregularities at her former firm, settlements sealed by the court. The woman trying to mother my children had secrets. I closed the laptop, stomach churning. What kind of person had I become, cyber-stalking my ex's fiancé? A mother protecting her cubs, whispered a fierce voice inside. The next morning brought Margaret to my door, looking uncharacteristically flustered. May I come in? I made coffee while she perched on my second-hand sofa, diamond rings catching the light. The silence stretched until she finally spoke. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. Margaret? No, let me say this. I knew David was being a fool 7 years ago. I should have intervened, should have... She twisted her rings. I was so focused on his career, his success. I forgot that success means nothing without love. He made his choice. Did he? She pulled an envelope from her purse. I found this in his old room last week. I thought you should see it. Inside was a letter. David's handwriting, dated a week after I'd disappeared. Clara. I've started this letter a dozen times. How do I say I was wrong? How do I tell you that I sat in that partners meeting yesterday and all I could think about was you? About us. About what we could be. I'm going to tell them no. The partnership can wait. You can't. We can't. I love you. I've loved you since the day you walked into constitutional law wearing that ridiculous Harry Potter sweater. I'll love you when we're old and gray and arguing about crossword puzzles. Come back to me. Please. Let me choose right this time. All my love, David. The paper shook in my hands. He never sent it. He couldn't find you. You'd vanished, changed your number. He hired an investigator, but you'd been careful. Margaret's voice was soft. He kept that letter for 7 years, Clara. I thought about that night in Seattle, Noah measuring in months instead of years, both babies crying while I walked the floor of a studio apartment, wondering if I'd made the worst mistake of my life. It wouldn't have changed anything, I lied. Margaret studied me with eyes that had seen through decades of pretense. Tuesday is the firm's Christmas party. David has to announce his engagement formally, make it official. It would be a shame if something interrupted that. Margaret, I can't. Can't you? She stood, smoothing her skirt. My son is about to marry a woman he respects, but doesn't love because he believes the woman he does love will never forgive him. Perhaps he's right, but perhaps... She left the sentence hanging like mistletoe, dangerous and tempting. The Carter house blazed with light and music, Charleston's elite circulating like well-dressed sharks. I stood in my one good dress, navy, not black, because this wasn't a funeral even if it felt like one. You came. David appeared at my elbow, hope naked in his voice. Your mother's quite persuasive. She told you about the letter. It wasn't a question. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Clara, David, there you are. Emily materialized in red silk, possessive hand on his arm. The Hendersons are asking about the merger. Always business with her, even at Christmas. The twins found us then, dressed in their best clothes, faces shining with excitement. Emily's smile tightened as Mia grabbed David's hand. Daddy, Grandma Margaret says Santa might come here tonight. Daddy. The word still jolted through me every time. Speaking of which, Emily's voice carried that dangerous sweetness. Shouldn't children their age be in bed? It's quite late. It's Christmas Eve, I said evenly. They can stay up? Of course. You know best. The subtext dripped, do you though? The evening progressed in careful choreography, Emily and I circling each other like prize fighters. David caught between. The twins, oblivious to the tension, charmed everyone they met. Then Mia clinked her fork against her juice glass, just like she'd seen adults do. I want to make a toast. The room quieted, indulgent smiles all around. My daughter, 7 years old and fearless, stood on her chair. I'm thankful for Christmas and cookies and Grandma Margaret. And I'm thankful we found our daddy. She paused, looking between David and me with those impossible eyes. But mostly, I wish Mommy and Daddy would stop being sad and just love each other again. The silence was deafening. Noah stood up beside her, my quiet boy finding his voice. Me too. Other kids' parents live together. Why can't ours? Emily's face went white, then red. Children, this isn't appropriate. No, Mia said firmly. You're not our mommy. You can't tell us what's appropriate. David, Emily's voice pitched high, control your children. My children, he said slowly, seem to be speaking their minds. This is ridiculous. We're getting married in 3 months. Are we? The words fell into the silent room like stones in water. Emily drew herself up, suddenly looking older, harder. Don't do this, David. You have no idea what you're risking. Enlighten me. Her smile was vicious. That little pro bono case you're so proud of, the one that made your reputation, I have files that suggest it wasn't as clean as you pretended. One word from me? Then say it. David's voice was calm, but I saw the muscle tick in his jaw. Say it all, Emily. But first, explain to everyone here why you're blackmailing the man you supposedly love. The room held its breath. Emily looked around, seeing her carefully cultivated image crumble. You'll regret this, she hissed, then swept out, heels clicking like gunshots. David stood in the ruin of his engagement, looking lost. Then Mia tugged his sleeve. Does this mean you can come home with us now? The party dissolved into chaos, but Margaret handled it with her usual grace, ushering out guests with promises of future explanations. Soon, only family remained, and somehow, impossibly, that included me. Well, Margaret said brightly. Who wants cocoa? The twins followed her to the kitchen, leaving David and me alone in the wreckage. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean for... Didn't you? His smile was rueful. Mother doesn't do anything without purpose. Neither do you. Emily's threats are empty. The case was clean. I made sure of it. She was fishing, desperate. He stepped closer. Clara, these 7 years, I built this whole life, this perfect career, and none of it meant anything because you weren't there. Don't. I backed away. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't be the man who chooses me after, instead of before. Then let me be the man who chooses you now, who chooses you tomorrow, who chooses you every day until you believe it. David, I hired the investigator, he said suddenly. Mother told you that. What she didn't tell you is that I found you 3 years ago. I stared at him. What? You were living in Seattle, working at that clinic, the twins in daycare down the street. I sat outside for hours, watching you juggle groceries and car seats and everything else. His voice broke. You were magnificent, and I was still a coward. Why didn't you? Because you'd built a life without me. A good life. Who was I to crash back in and destroy it? So what changed? Mother invited you for Christmas. His laugh was shaky. And I realized I'd rather risk everything than spend another holiday pretending I was okay without you. The twins burst back in, marshmallow on their faces, Margaret trailing behind with knowing eyes. Mommy, Noah said seriously, Grandma says we could stay here tonight. Have Christmas morning like a real family. We are a real family, I said automatically. But not all together, Mia pointed out with 7-year-old logic. I looked at David, at our children, at the beautiful, broken mess we'd made of things. Just tonight, I said finally. We'll see about tomorrow. David's smile could have powered the Christmas lights. Tomorrow, he agreed. The next morning, I woke in the guest room to the sound of children's laughter and carols on the radio. Through the window, Charleston lay under unexpected snow, making everything clean and new. I found them all in the living room, Margaret teaching the twins to play chess, David attempting to assemble some complicated toy castle. He looked up as I entered, his hair sticking up like it used to in college, and my heart performed its familiar betrayal. Coffee? He offered. I remembered how you take it. Of course he did. 2 sugars, splash of cream, strong enough to wake the dead. Like some things were written too deep to forget. As I watched our children open presents, as I caught David watching me, as Margaret smiled her satisfied smile, I thought about forgiveness, about second chances, about how sometimes love isn't about perfect timing but about choosing to try again, even when you're terrified. Clara, David said quietly while the twins were distracted, that letter I never sent. Everything I wrote is still true. I thought about the 7 years of struggle, of pride, of protecting my heart. Then I looked at our children, their faces bright with Christmas joy, and made my choice. Then maybe, I said, you should tell me in person. Later, walking on the beach while the twins ran ahead, David pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring. We weren't there yet. Inside was a key. To the house, he explained. I'm not asking you to move in. Just have a key. Come when you want. Leave when you need to. But know you can always come back. I closed my fingers around the metal, feeling its weight. No more choosing after? No more after, he promised. Only now, only us. The twins shrieked as waves chased them, and I realized this was it. The moment when you decide whether to stay safe or risk everything on the chance of joy. I kissed him, right there on Charleston Beach, with sand in my shoes and children laughing and 7 years melting like snow. He tasted like coffee and promises and home. Mommy and Daddy are kissing, Mia announced to the seagulls. Finally, Noah added, making us laugh against each other's lips. That night, Margaret handed me an old photo album. Inside were pictures I'd never seen. David at law school graduation, looking lost. David holding baby shoes in a store dated 3 years ago. David standing outside a pediatric clinic in Seattle. He never stopped loving you, she said simply. He just stopped believing he deserved you. I touched the photos, seeing our lost years differently. Not a straight line of abandonment, but a messy tangle of fear and love and trying to do right. What do I do with this? I asked. Whatever gives you peace, dear girl. But remember, love isn't just about the perfect moments. It's about choosing each other through the imperfect ones too. As I tucked the twins into bed in their father's childhood room, Mia asked, Are we staying forever now? I don't know, baby. Is that what you want? I want us to be together, Noah said. All of us. Then we'll try, I promised. We'll try really hard. Down the hall, David played piano. Chopin, like all those years ago. I stood in the doorway, watching his hands move, and felt the last walls crumble. Play something happy, I said. He looked up, smiled, and shifted into a carol. I sat beside him on the bench, our children sleeping above us, snow falling outside, and thought, I once believed happiness was lost forever. But sometimes, to find the light, you have to journey through all the darkness first. The key was warm in my pocket. Tomorrow would bring questions, logistics, the hard work of rebuilding. But tonight we were just a family around a piano, making music, making memories, making our way back to each other. Outside, church bells rang midnight. Christmas was over, but something new was just beginning. In the morning, we'd walk that Charleston beach again. This time, together. Hi, my name is Elena. 6 years ago, the man I loved disappeared with a single cold message. I need to focus on my future. This isn't working anymore. I called him 47 times until I realized his number had been disconnected. But on the day I stepped onto the stage in New York to present my work in front of hundreds of people, he appeared. And in that very moment, he saw 2 little girls with faces unmistakably his own. Before I share the full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you've ever pushed through something you thought was impossible. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. I still remember the weight of his absence that October morning. 6 years have passed, but my fingers sometimes trace the edge of my coffee cup the same way they used to trace the line of Nicholas's jaw. Back then, I was 21, studying architecture at Northwestern, sketching buildings that would never be built and dreaming dreams that would never come true. Nicholas Hale entered my life like a storm. Sudden, overwhelming, inevitable. He was finishing his MBA, 5 years older, with that easy confidence that comes from never having to count pennies at the grocery store. But when he looked at me in that campus coffee shop, fumbling with my scattered blueprints, something shifted in his eyes. You design like you're trying to give people homes, not just houses, he'd said, and I knew I was lost. We had 8 months. 8 months of him showing up at my tiny apartment with takeout from places I couldn't afford, of studying side by side in the library until security kicked us out, of whispered promises about the life we'd build together. He'd trace my architectural drawings with his finger and say, "One day, you'll design our home." His family lived in a different universe, the kind where charity galas were Tuesday obligations and summer meant the Hamptons. I met them once. His mother's smile never reached her eyes as she cataloged my department store dress, my mother's accent when I mentioned her, my father's construction job. How refreshing, she'd said about my career aspirations, the word sharp as winter wind. The last time I saw Nicholas, he held my face between his hands in my apartment doorway. I'll handle them, he promised. Trust me, Elena, I'll handle them. 3 days later, I got the text. Clinical, precise. I need to focus on my future. This isn't working anymore.
I called 47 times. Each ring echoed in my chest like a heartbeat stopping. His number became disconnected
By the weekend. I went to his apartment. The doorman, who'd always smiled at me, looked through me like I was smoke. Mr. Hale left instructions. You're not on the list anymore. I threw up in the pristine marble bathroom of his building's lobby. The attendant handed me paper towels with practiced discretion, probably used to ejecting Nicholas's father's inconvenient problems. But she didn't know about the other problem, the one I discovered that very morning, staring at 2 pink lines in my bathroom. 21 years old, abandoned, pregnant, and suddenly understanding that love wasn't enough when you were the wrong kind of girl from the wrong kind of family. I packed my life into 3 suitcases and bought a Greyhound ticket to anywhere that wasn't Chicago. The echo of what we'd been still haunts me. Even now, in my kitchen in Montana, I sometimes catch myself setting out 2 coffee cups before remembering I drink alone. The pregnancy test had been positive for exactly 6 hours when I bought that bus ticket to Whitefish, Montana. I'd found the town on a map, small enough to disappear, big enough to find work. The 1,200-mile journey gave me time to practice not crying, to perfect the art of shallow breathing that wouldn't disturb the morning sickness. I remember the ultrasound technician's face when she turned the screen toward me. Twins, she said gently, watching me process the impossible. 2 heartbeats on the monitor, strong and insistent. Isabella and Camila, though I wouldn't name them for weeks. 2 pieces of Nicholas I'd carry forever. 2 reasons to be stronger than I felt. Whitefish embraced me the way small towns do, cautiously, but with eventual warmth. I found a job at a local architectural firm, sketching renovations for fishing lodges and family cabins. My boss, Harold, was 70 and kind, pretending not to notice when morning sickness sent me rushing to the bathroom. My wife had terrible morning sickness with our boys, he'd say, sliding crackers across my desk. The girls arrived during a February blizzard. 27 hours of labor, alone. Except for the nurses, who held my hands when the pain made me scream Nicholas's name. Isabella came first, fierce and demanding. Camilla followed 4 minutes later, quieter but watching everything with those eyes, his eyes. I'd prepared for the logistics of single motherhood, but not for the moments that ambushed me. Like when Isabella smiled for the first time and I saw Nicholas's dimple, or when Camilla wrapped her tiny fist around my finger with the same determined grip he'd had when he promised we'd be together forever. The early years blur together now, a watercolor painting of exhaustion and wonder. Working while they napped in the portable cribs, Harold let me set up in the office storage room. Designing dream houses for clients while living in a 2-bedroom apartment where the radiator clanged like a ghost. Teaching myself to be 2 parents, to throw a baseball and braid hair, to answer, "Where's Daddy?" with, "Some people just have mommy, and that's okay too." Dr. Owen Carter entered our lives when the girls were 3. Camilla had fallen from the jungle gym, and he'd been the emergency room pediatrician who'd made her laugh through the stitches. "Brave girl," he'd said, but he was looking at me. Later, he became our regular pediatrician, then the friend who appeared with soup when we all had flu, then something more complicated that I couldn't quite name. "You know I'm here, right?" Owen would say, watching me wrestle with bedtime stories and bath time chaos. "You don't have to do this alone." But I did. Because letting someone in meant risking another leaving. The girls had lost a father they'd never known. I wouldn't let them lose anyone else. So I smiled at Owen, accepted his help grudgingly, and built walls so high that even I sometimes forgot what lay behind them. The email arrived on a Tuesday while I was sketching playgrounds. The American Institute of Architects wanted me to present my community housing project at their New York conference. My hands shook as I read it 3 times. New York, his city. "You have to go," Harold said, peering over my shoulder. "This is career-defining, Elena." I stared at my daughters playing with blocks in the corner of the office, building towers they'd inevitably knock down. 6 years of hiding, and now opportunity was dragging me back to the place where I'd been broken. But their college funds were still more dream than reality, and this presentation could change everything. "Mommy's going on an airplane," I told them that night, practicing my brave face. Isabella immediately demanded to come. Camila, always more intuitive, touched my cheek. "Will you come back?" "Always," I promised, the word tasting like fear. New York hit me like a slap. The smell of subway grates and ambition. The press of bodies all moving toward something bigger than themselves. I'd booked a hotel in Queens, far from the Manhattan memories, but the city's pulse still found me. Every tall building seemed to whisper his name. The conference was at the Javits Center, all glass and importance. I wore my best dress, a designer consignment find, and practiced my presentation in the bathroom mirror. Community-centered design isn't just about buildings, I whispered to my reflection. It's about creating homes where families thrive. I was arranging my presentation materials when I heard it. That laugh, low, confident, achingly familiar. My body knew before my mind accepted it. Nicholas stood 20 feet away, surrounded by suits and sycophants, gesturing at architectural models with hands I'd once known better than my own. He turned as if pulled by invisible string. Our eyes met across 6 years of silence. Time stuttered. His face went white, then flushed. The man beside him kept talking, but Nicholas wasn't listening anymore. He took a step toward me, another. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but watch him approach, like a reckoning I'd both dreaded and craved. "Elena." My name on his lips was a prayer and an apology. I found my voice in the sharp edges of old pain. "Mr. Hale, professional, distant, everything we'd never been. You're here, you're..." His eyes swept over me, cataloging changes. "You're presenting?" "Yes." One word, pulling from reserves of strength I'd built in midnight feedings and single-parent teacher conferences. "Elena, I need to..." "Mommy." The voice cut through the conference noise like a blade. I turned to see Harold walking toward us, a girl's hand in each of his. He'd surprised me, bringing them to watch my presentation. Isabella broke free, running toward me with Camilla close behind. I caught them, lifted them, turned back to find Nicholas staring at 2 small faces that were unmistakably his own. The earth didn't move. It simply stopped. Nicholas's legs gave out. He caught himself on a display table, sending architectural models scattering. The sound barely registered over the roaring in my ears. Isabella, bold as always, studied him with those familiar green eyes. Why is that man staring at us, Mommy? I couldn't speak. 6 years of carefully constructed walls crumbled as Nicholas's gaze moved between the girls and me, doing math that broke his face into pieces. Eleanor, there you are. Harold's timing was a gift. He positioned himself between us, protective. Girls, let's get seats for Mommy's big presentation. Elena. Nicholas's voice cracked. Please. 5 minutes. No. The word came from somewhere primal, mama bear, fierce. You don't get to... I never left you. The words tumbled out desperate, raw. Elena, I never left you. I tried to call, to find you. Every number disconnected, every email bounced. They told me you'd moved on, that you'd been seeing someone else, that you'd used me for... Stop. I was shaking. Camila pressed closer, sensing my distress. Just stop. But he kept coming, careful not to spook the girls, but desperate to reach me. My parents, they did something. I know how this sounds, but Elena, I never sent that text. I never... Mr. Hale. Harold's voice held 40 years of protective grandfather authority. The lady asked you to stop. The conference swirled around us, oblivious to our small tragedy. Nicholas pulled out his phone with trembling hands, scrolling frantically. Look, please, just look. He showed me screenshots, dozens of emails to addresses I'd never had, calls to numbers I'd never owned. I hired investigators. They said you'd vanished, that you didn't want to be found. My presentation was in 10 minutes. My daughters were watching. My carefully built life was dissolving like sugar in rain. It doesn't matter anymore. How old are they? His voice broke completely. That's none of your business. Elena, please, are they... We're 5, Isabella announced proudly. Always his daughter, inserting herself into any conversation. Nicholas made a sound like wounded animal. Security was watching now, alerted by the scattered models. I gathered my girls closer, but Camilla reached out one small hand toward him. Why are you sad? That broke him. Nicholas Hale, heir to an empire, dropped to his knees in the middle of the Javits Center. I'm sad because I lost something precious a long time ago. Mommy finds our lost things, Camilla offered seriously. She's really good at it. Harold cleared his throat. Elena, your presentation. I let him lead us away, but I felt Nicholas's eyes following. Somehow, I got through my presentation. Spoke about building communities for families, about designing spaces where children could grow safely, about architecture as an act of love. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built everything except bridges back to the past. When I finished, to considerable applause, Nicholas was waiting outside the conference room. I know you hate me, he began. I don't hate you. The truth surprised us both. I nothing you, I survived you. He showed up at our hotel the next morning with coffee and a teddy bear for each girl. I'd spent the night wrestling with ghosts while my daughters slept peacefully, unaware their world had tilted off its axis. How did you find us? I asked through the barely opened door. I own the hotel. Of course he did. The old Nicholas would have been embarrassed by the admission. This one just looked tired. Can I just talk to them, please? Isabella was already pushing past me, drawn by the bears. Are those for us? And so began the strangest dance of my life. Nicholas, on the floor of a hotel room, learning our daughters' names. Isabella showed him her drawings. Architectural sketches already, my girl. Camila, shyer, watched from behind my leg until he pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of buildings he'd developed. I helped design homes for families, he told them, his voice careful. Like your mom. Our mom's the best, Isabella informed him. She built a tree house in Mr. Peterson's yard that has real windows. I watched him absorb every detail, their favorite colors, purple and green, their breakfast preferences, pancakes with faces, their bedtime rituals. 2 stories, 1 song. When Camila climbed into his lap to see his phone better, Nicholas looked at me with tears streaming down his face. I'll go back to Chicago, I said quietly. We'll work out some kind of... No. He shifted Camila gently, pulling out a thick folder. I brought these. I need you to understand. The papers told a story that made my stomach turn. Email accounts created in my name, phone records spoofed, even a fake social media profile showing me with another man, photos doctored so cleverly I had to look twice to see the deception. His family had orchestrated my disappearance with surgical precision. The investigator found this last year, he said quietly. My father had a stroke 6 months ago. My mother finally admitted some of it. Some of it? She swears they didn't know about... He gestured helplessly at the girls, now building block towers on the hotel carpet. Elena, I would have torn the world apart to find you if I'd known. The thing about pain is that it fossilizes, turns soft hurt into hard edges that cut anyone who comes too close. But watching Nicholas help Isabella balance a particularly ambitious block structure, seeing Camilla pat his arm when a tower fell, I felt something crack in my chest. I can't just forgive 6 years, I whispered. I'm not asking you to. He met my eyes over our daughters' heads. I'm asking for the chance to be their father, to prove I'm not the man who let you disappear. That night, Owen called. How's the conference going? I could hear the real question underneath. It's complicated, I admitted, watching the girls sleep in their hotel bed, new teddy bears clutched tight. Elena. His sigh carried 3 years of unspoken things. Just be careful. The Hale estate in the Hamptons looked exactly as I'd remembered, imposing, immaculate, and cold as February rain. Nicholas had insisted on this confrontation, and I'd agreed only because I needed to look his parents in the eye. The girls thought it was an adventure, pressing their noses to the car windows as we wound through streets where houses had names instead of numbers. Big house, Isabella observed. Too big. Where do you play? Mrs. Hale waited in the foyer like a general preparing for battle. 6 years had sharpened her edges, but when she saw the girls, something flickered across her face. Regret, maybe, or just calculation. Mother. Nicholas's voice could have frozen flame. You remember Elena? Of course. She studied me with those cold blue eyes, then looked at my daughters, her granddaughters. They're beautiful. Mr. Hale wheeled in from the study, his stroke evident in the slight droop of his left side, but his voice remained strong. This is unfortunate. Unfortunate? Nicholas stepped forward. You destroyed my life. You stole my children from me. We protected the family legacy, Mrs. Hale said smoothly, from what appeared to be a calculated stop. I was surprised by my own calm. Your son left because he's a coward. You helped, but he left. Nicholas flinched. His parents exchanged glances. You could have fought, I continued, finding strength in truths I'd never spoken. Could have looked harder, pushed back, chosen us, but you didn't. So yes, you're all responsible. Camilla tugged my hand. Mommy, why is everyone angry? That's when Mr. Hale played his card. Did you know your father tried to destroy our Shanghai project in 2016? Cost us $14 million in delays with his environmental protests? The world tilted. My father died in 2017. After we crushed his firm, yes? Mrs. Hale's smile was razor sharp. Interesting that his daughter would target our son so soon after. I remembered my father's final year. The drinking, the depression, the way he'd apologized for failing to leave me anything. He'd never mentioned the Hales, but then he'd protected me from so many of his battles. You're saying I seduced your son for revenge? I laughed, but it came out broken. I didn't even know who Nicholas was when we met. Convenient, Mrs. Hale murmured. Nicholas grabbed the antique vase from the entry table and threw it against the marble wall. The crash made everyone jump, the girls pressing against me in fear. Enough, he turned on his parents. You want to destroy everything you touch? Fine, but you won't touch them. He looked at me, then our daughters. We're leaving, and if you come near my family again, I'll dismantle everything grandfather built, brick by brick. You'd destroy your inheritance for them? Mr. Hale's voice held genuine shock. Nicholas knelt beside the girls, gentle despite his rage. Hey, want to see the beach? There's an ice cream shop. As he led us out, Mrs. Hale called after him. You're making a mistake, Nicholas. He didn't look back. No, Mother, I'm fixing one. The beach house Nicholas rented was everything the estate wasn't. Warm, lived in, with sandy floors and windows that actually opened. The girls ran straight to the shore while we watched from the deck, the weight of revelation hanging between us. I didn't know about your father, he said quietly. Elena, I swear I didn't know. I believed him. That was the terrible thing. I believed everything now. The fabricated emails, the family manipulation, even his years of searching. But belief didn't erase the scar tissue. It doesn't matter, I said. Don't you see? We were doomed from the start. Your family, mine, we were just collateral damage in their wars. Nicholas turned to face me fully. You're not collateral damage. You're the only real thing I've ever chosen. That night, while the girls built sandcastles by moonlight, Owen called again. This time, I answered. I'm flying out, he said without preamble. You need support. Owen, don't. I love you. The words hung in the beach air. I've loved you for 2 years, Elena. I know you're not ready, maybe you'll never be ready. But you should know you have choices. Real ones. a future that doesn't hurt. After I hung up, I found Nicholas teaching Camila to skip stones. Isabella had given up, choosing instead to collect shells. The scene was so perfectly what I'd once dreamed that it physically hurt. "There's someone else," I told him when the girls ran ahead. He nodded slowly. "The pediatrician. I had you investigated when I couldn't find you. I know." "You had me investigated?" I was desperate. "No apology, just fact." "Is he good to them?" "He's good to all of us." Nicholas picked up a stone, threw it hard into the waves. "I won't share them, Elena. I can't. I've already lost 6 years." That's when Isabella came running back, tears streaming. Camila fell. We ran together, found Camila sitting in the sand, clutching her knee. Nicholas reached her first, scooping her up with practiced ease that suggested muscle memory from another life. Perhaps the children he'd thought he'd have by now, with someone suitable. "Brave girl," he murmured, examining the scrape. "Just like your mom." Camilla looked between us with those two knowing eyes. "Are you our daddy?" The beach went silent except for waves. Nicholas looked at me, asking permission I didn't know how to give. Finally, I nodded. "Yes," he said simply. "I'm your daddy, and I'm very, very late." Isabella studied him with my skepticism. "Where were you?" "Lost," he admitted. "But I'm here now." "Promise?" Camilla asked. Nicholas pulled both girls close, meeting my eyes over their heads. "I promise. No matter what happens, I'm your daddy, and I'm here." Watching them together, I felt the last of my carefully constructed walls crumble. The problem with truth is that it doesn't erase history. It just complicates the future. The custody arrangement took 3 months to negotiate. Nicholas left the family company, liquidating his trust fund to start something smaller, cleaner. I watched him rebuild himself while I did the same, accepting a position with a Chicago firm specializing in sustainable community development. Owen flew out twice. The second time, he sat with me in my half-packed Montana apartment while the girls were at school. "I could love them like my own," he said. "You know that, right?" "I know." And I did. Owen was safety, was Sunday pancakes without drama, was loving someone who'd never been broken by the same things that broke you. But they have a father. You love him. Not a question. "I love who we were," I corrected. "I don't know who we are now." Owen kissed my forehead when he left. "When you figure it out, I'll be here." But life doesn't wait for clarity. Nicholas threw himself into fatherhood with the intensity he'd once reserved for acquisitions. Dance recitals, parent-teacher conferences, Saturday morning cartoons. He absorbed it all like a man making up for drought. The girls bloomed under his attention, Isabella especially. She'd started sketching buildings like him, like me, bridging our worlds with crayon and paper. The wedding, when it came, wasn't what either of us had once imagined. No Hamptons estate, no society photographers. Just a community garden in Lincoln Park that I'd helped design, with the girls as flower girls and Harold officiating through tears. "I thought I'd lost you," Nicholas whispered as we exchanged rings. Simple bands, nothing like the Tiffany solitaire he'd once picked out in another lifetime. "You did," I said honestly. "We lost each other, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we needed to break to rebuild." His mother sent a card, no money, just a note that said, "I hope you prove me wrong." His father sent nothing. But Nicholas's brother appeared at the reception, slipping an envelope into my hand. Inside, a letter confessing to orchestrating the email hacks, to feeding their parents' fears, to wanting Nicholas out of the company he'd been promised. "What do we do with this?" I asked Nicholas later, watching our daughters dance with Harold. "Nothing," he decided. "We build forward, not back." The community center we developed together won 3 architectural awards. Nicholas handled the business side, while I designed spaces where families could grow, where single mothers could find support, where love could be complicated and messy and real. Sometimes I dream about the girl I was, 21, and sure that love conquered all. I want to tell her that love isn't enough, that it's just the foundation. The house you build on it, that takes work, forgiveness, and the kind of courage that comes from being broken and choosing to heal anyway. "Mommy?" Camila asked one night, looking at our wedding photo. "Were you scared?" "Terrified," I admitted. "But you did it anyway?" I smoothed her hair, his hair. Sometimes the brave thing isn't feeling ready. It's choosing to begin. My name is Sophia Carter. For years, I was treated like I didn't even exist in my own home. But then, right in the middle of a company gala, I stood before hundreds of people, looked my husband in the eye and said, "Do you want me to tell them about the condo you bought for your mistress on Brazos Street?" The entire room went silent. Before I share my full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever had to fight your way back to yourself, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The coffee maker gurgled at 5:47 a.m., same as every morning for the past 12 years. I watched the dark liquid drip into the carafe, counting each drop like marking time in a prison I'd built myself. Our kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances and marble countertops, the kind of perfection you see in home magazines, the kind that hides everything broken underneath. "You're up early again," Daniel's voice cut through the morning quiet. He didn't look at me as he grabbed his travel mug, already dressed in his pressed suit. "Try not to look so tired at dinner tonight. The Johnsons are coming." I nodded, swallowing the words I wanted to say. "I'm tired because Lily had nightmares again. I'm tired because you came home at midnight smelling like someone else's perfume." Instead, I poured his coffee exactly how he liked it. 2 sugars, no cream. The mirror in our hallway caught my reflection as I passed. 34 years old, and I barely recognized the woman staring back. Where had Sophia Carter gone? The woman who'd won design awards, who dreamed of opening her own studio. She disappeared somewhere between Ethan's first birthday and Lily's kindergarten orientation, replaced by Sophia Miller, Daniel's wife, mother of 2, keeper of a perfect suburban home. At breakfast, Ethan pushed eggs around his plate while Lily hummed softly to herself. Daniel scrolled through his phone, occasionally grunting at emails. I buttered toast in silence, remembering when we used to talk over breakfast when he'd reach for my hand across the same table. "Mom made the best fort yesterday," Lily announced suddenly. "We used all the couch cushions." Daniel's eyes flicked up from his screen. "Your mother has plenty of time for forts." The words dripped with something that made my chest tight. "Some of us have real work to do." Ethan's fork stopped moving. Even at 10, he understood the weight of his father's words. That evening's dinner party was like all the others. Forced smiles, small talk about property values, and school districts. I'd spent hours preparing Daniel's favorite dishes, making sure everything was perfect. But when Jennifer Johnson complimented the meal, Daniel laughed. "Don't give her too much credit. It's not like she has anything else to do all day." He turned to his new assistant, Vanessa, who'd somehow been invited. Now, Vanessa here, she manages million-dollar portfolios and still finds time to run marathons. That's impressive. The room tilted. I gripped my wine glass, watching the burgundy liquid swirl, imagining it was courage I could swallow. Vanessa, 26, blonde, everything I wasn't anymore, smiled at my husband like he'd hung the moon. "Excuse me," I managed, standing on unsteady legs. In the bathroom, I pressed my palms against the cool marble counter and stared at the stranger in the mirror. When had I become invisible in my own home? 3 days after the dinner party, I found myself parked outside a Starbucks in Houston, hands shaking as I gripped my phone. Maya's contact information stared back at me. My best friend from college, now a successful divorce attorney. We'd lost touch after I'd married Daniel. He hadn't liked how aggressive she was. "Sophia? Oh my God, is it really you?" Maya's voice hadn't changed. Still warm, still strong. We met that afternoon. She took one look at me and pulled me into a hug that nearly broke me apart. "What has he done to you?" she whispered. Over coffee that grew cold while I talked, I told her everything. The small cruelties that had become daily occurrences. The way Daniel talked about me like I was furniture, useful, but ultimately replaceable. How I'd given up my career, my friends, myself. "You know what pisses me off most?" Maya leaned forward, her lawyer instincts sharp as ever. "You designed the Henderson building. Your work is an architectural digest, and now you're apologizing for existing in your own home? The kids will learn that it's okay to be treated like nothing? Is that what you want to teach Lily? That she should disappear for someone else's comfort?" That night, I lay next to Daniel, listening to his breathing. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Then again. At 11:47 p.m., curiosity won. The screen lit up with a text from Vanessa. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Dinner at our usual place?" Hour. That word echoed in my skull. How many usual places did they have? The next morning, after Daniel left for work, I found Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, drawing. He looked up at me with eyes too knowing for his age. "Mom, why does Dad make you sad?" I froze. Spatula suspended over the pancake griddle. "What makes you think that, sweetheart?" He shrugged, going back to his drawing. "You used to sing when you cooked. Now you're always quiet." A pause. "Like you're scared." My 10-year-old son saw what I'd been hiding from myself. I flipped the pancake with shaking hands, Maya's words from yesterday mixing with Ethan's observation. Was this the legacy I wanted to leave my children? "Hey, bud." I sat down next to him, Abandoning breakfast. What would you think if things changed around here? He looked at me for a long moment. Like if Dad wasn't so mean? The words hit me like cold water. I'd failed to protect not just myself, but them too. They'd been watching, learning that love looked like control, that marriage meant one person disappearing so the other could shine. Yeah, I whispered, like that. Ethan reached over and took my hand. I think that would be good, Mom. You deserve to be happy too. The gym smelled like rubber and determination. I hadn't set foot in one since before Ethan was born, but there I was at 5 a.m., fumbling with the treadmill controls, while women half my age sprinted effortlessly beside me. First day back? The trainer, Marcus, had kind eyes. Take it slow. Rome wasn't built in a day. Slow became my mantra. Slow and steady and silent. Daniel didn't notice when I started leaving the house in workout clothes. He didn't notice the laptop I'd hidden in the garage, where I worked on freelance design projects while the kids were at school. He didn't notice anything about me at all, but I noticed everything about him. Bank statements left carelessly on his desk. Credit card bills with charges at jewelry stores, jewelry I'd never seen. Restaurant receipts for two, always for two, at places he'd told me were client dinners. Document everything, Maya had advised. Date, time, amount, build your case. So I did. Photos of receipts, screenshots of credit card statements, a spreadsheet that grew longer each week. My phone became a weapon I carried in secret, gathering evidence of a life my husband was living without me. The freelance work started small. A friend of Maya's needed help with her home office. Then her neighbor wanted a kitchen redesign. Word spread quietly, the way good secrets do. Within 2 months, I had my own bank account and 3 steady clients. You're glowing, my neighbor Patricia mentioned one afternoon. Have you done something different? I had. I'd remembered who Sophia Carter was before she became Mrs. Miller. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd been organizing Daniel's home office, one of my wifely duties, as he called them, when I found the folder, property documents for a condo in downtown Austin. The buyer's name, Daniel Miller. The co-signer, Vanessa Chen. My hands didn't shake anymore. That surprised me. I took photos of every page, then placed the folder back exactly where I'd found it. The old Sophia would have confronted him, would have cried, would have begged for an explanation. The new Sophia, or maybe the real Sophia, finally waking up, simply added it to her evidence file. That night at dinner, Daniel complained about his steak being overcooked. Honestly, Sophia, you have one job. How hard is it to cook a decent meal? You're right, I said calmly, cutting Lily's meat into small pieces. I should pay more attention. He blinked, surprised by my agreement. I smiled at him, the same smile I'd been practicing in the mirror, the one that showed nothing, revealed nothing, promised nothing. In bed that night, Daniel rolled toward me for the first time in months. I turned away. I'm tired, I said. It wasn't a lie. I was tired of being invisible, tired of being small, tired of being sorry for existing. Fine, he muttered, rolling back. You're always tired lately. Yes, I thought. Tired of you. I'm taking Vanessa to the Dallas Gala, Daniel announced over breakfast, as casually as if he were telling me about the weather. You'd be bored anyway. All that business talk. I spread strawberry jam on Lily's toast, keeping my hand steady. Of course, I understand. He looked almost disappointed by my easy acceptance. After he left, I called Maya. Operation Comeback starts now, she said when I told her. I'll meet you at Neiman's in an hour. The black dress cost more than I'd spent on myself in 3 years. It hugged curves I'd forgotten I had, fell just right at the knee. The saleswoman brought shoes that made my legs look longer, suggested a makeup artist who transformed my tired face into something that made me stop and stare. There she is, Maya breathed. There's Sophia Carter. The Dallas Hilton glittered with importance. I'd been to this gala before, years ago, when Daniel still introduced me with pride. Now I walked through those doors alone, chin high, shoulders back. The ballroom hummed with conversation and champagne bubbles. I saw them before they saw me. Daniel in his best tuxedo. Vanessa in red, his hand possessive on her lower back. They looked like what we used to look like, young, successful, in love. My heel caught on nothing, but I didn't stumble. Not anymore. Sophia? The voice belonged to Charlotte Hayes, CEO of Hayes International, one of Daniel's biggest clients. My dear, you look absolutely stunning. I didn't know you were coming tonight. Last-minute decision, I smiled, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. I couldn't miss the chance to catch up with everyone. The whispers started like ripples in a pond. Heads turned, conversations paused. Daniel's assistant, Former assistant, I realized, seeing her uncomfortable face, touched his arm and pointed. Our eyes met across the room. I watched the color drain from his face, watched Vanessa's confusion, watched the careful image he'd constructed start to crack. Is that your penthouse design on the presentation board? Charlotte followed my gaze to the architectural displays. I remember now, Daniel mentioned you'd helped with some ideas? Helped. I turned to her fully. I designed every square foot of that penthouse. The floating staircase, the living wall, the seamless indoor-outdoor concept. That's all my work. Charlotte's eyebrows rose. But Daniel said, I'm sure Daniel says a lot of things. I took a sip of champagne, letting the bubbles give me courage. But tonight, I thought I'd speak for myself. More people gathered, drawn by the shift in energy. I talked about design, about my vision for spaces that breathe, about projects I'd completed before becoming Mrs. Miller. With every word, I watched myself materialize in their eyes. I wasn't Daniel's invisible wife anymore. I was Sophia Carter, architect, creator, person. We should discuss my upcoming hotel project, Charlotte said, pressing her business card into my hand. I had no idea I had such talent right under my nose. Daniel appeared at my elbow, his grip too tight. We need to talk. No, I said simply, not bothering to lower my voice. We don't. Daniel dragged me to a corner of the ballroom, his face twisted with rage. What the hell do you think you're doing? Attending a gala. I pulled my arm free. Meeting potential clients, networking. You're embarrassing me. His voice dropped to a hiss. My wife doesn't show up uninvited to my work events dressed like what, Daniel? Like a professional? Like someone who exists? The champagne had become liquid courage in my veins. Or like someone you can't ignore anymore? You're being hysterical. He glanced around, checking who might be watching. Always worried about appearances. We'll discuss this at home. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. I'm done discussing things on your timeline, in your way, by your rules. His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. Not hard enough to leave marks. Daniel was too smart for visible abuse, but firm enough to remind me who held the power. Or who used to. Daniel? Vanessa appeared, wobbling slightly in heels too high for someone who'd had too much champagne. Baby, where did you? She stopped, seeing me, seeing his hand on my wrist, seeing the tableau we made. I smiled at her. Not cruelly, but with something like pity. Red's a good color on you. He always did like his assistants in red. I'm not just his assistant, she slurred, defensive. No, I agreed. You're also living in the condo he bought on Brazos Street, the one he put your name on. I turned to Daniel, whose face had gone past pale to gray. Did you use the same real estate agent who found our house? Or did you find someone new for your secrets? Vanessa's eyes widened. You said you were divorced. You said she was crazy, that I what? I kept my voice gentle, speaking to her but watching him. That I trapped him? That I let myself go? That I was too boring, too domestic, too used up after having his children? I'd heard him on the phone after all. Thin walls work both ways. This isn't the place, Daniel ground out. Oh, I think it's the perfect place. Charlotte Hayes had drifted closer, along with several other familiar faces. All these people who think you're such a devoted family man, such a successful businessman. Should I tell them about the separate credit cards? The trips to Vegas that were supposedly client meetings? You're making a scene. His CEO voice, the one that made junior associates cower. But I wasn't a junior associate. I was the woman who'd held his head when he'd had food poisoning, who'd designed the office that made his reputation, who'd given him 2 beautiful children and a life that looked perfect from the outside. Good, I said. It's about time. Vanessa backed away, her face crumbling as she processed the truth. Security approached. Daniel must have signaled them, but Charlotte Hayes intercepted with a gesture. I think, Charlotte said coolly, that Mrs. Miller was just leaving, with my business card. We'll be in touch about that project, Sophia. The divorce papers felt heavier than their weight suggested. I signed my name, Sophia Carter Miller, soon to be just Sophia Carter again, with Maya sitting beside me in her Houston office. He's hired Brennan and Associates, she warned. They'll play dirty, threatening custody, hiding assets, the whole playbook. Let them try. I had my own playbook now. Bank records, property documents, text messages I'd photographed when Daniel left his phone unlocked. Evidence of a double life funded by marital assets. Daniel's reaction was swift and vicious. He came to the house when he knew I'd be alone, using his key before I could change the locks. You think you're so clever, he snarled, backing me against the kitchen counter. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I'll take everything. The house, the kids, every penny you think you're entitled to. Mom! Ethan's voice from the doorway made Daniel step back. My son stood there in his school uniform, backpack sliding off one shoulder, eyes moving between us. Hey, sweetheart. I kept my voice steady. Dad was just leaving. No, he wasn't. Ethan stepped into the kitchen, positioning himself between us, 10 years old and already protective. Dad, you need to go. Daniel laughed, ugly and sharp. Listen to you, taking her side. She's poisoning you against me. No one's poisoning me. Ethan's voice cracked but held firm. I have eyes. I have ears. I know what you say to Mom, how you treat her. The silence stretched until Daniel finally stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sank to the floor, Ethan wrapping his thin arms around me. I'll testify, he whispered. If the judge needs to know, I'll tell them. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He pulled back, meeting my eyes. You're protecting us. Someone needs to protect you. That weekend, while Daniel took the kids to his mother's, I packed with systematic precision. Family photos where he'd crop me out, the china his mother had given us, insisting it stay in the family. The watch I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. Let him explain their absence. Maya called with updates. His lawyer's trying to claim abandonment, says you've been absent from the marriage. I laughed, surprising myself. Absent? I've been invisible. There's a difference. The judge will see that, especially with what Vanessa's willing to share. That was the surprise witness, Daniel's mistress, discarded when she became inconvenient, angry enough to tell the truth. She'd kept receipts too. Screenshots of promises he'd made, contracts she'd signed, thinking she was building a future. He told me you were abusive, she'd said in her deposition, that he was protecting the children from you. But then I saw how he talked to you at that gala. The Ethan's letter to the court was simple, written in his careful 5th-grade handwriting. My mom makes our house feel safe. My dad makes it feel like a test we're always failing. The courtroom smelled like old wood, and justice deferred. I sat beside Maya, wearing the navy suit she'd helped me choose. Professional, serious, nothing like the fading housewife Daniel had described in his filings. He entered with his team of lawyers, still wearing confidence like expensive cologne. His eyes skimmed over me, dismissive even now. That would be his mistake. Your Honor, Daniel's lawyer began, my client has been the primary provider for this family. Mrs. Miller abandoned her career by choice and now seeks to punish him for her own decisions. Maya stood slowly, like a cat stretching before the hunt. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that Mr. Miller systematically isolated my client, denigrated her contributions, and used marital assets to fund an extramarital relationship. The evidence unfolded piece by piece. Bank statements showing the condo purchase, credit card bills for jewelry I'd never seen, business trips that aligned suspiciously with Vanessa's social media posts from Vegas, Miami, Cabo. These are legitimate business expenses, Daniel insisted from the witness stand, including the lease for Miss Chen's BMW? Maya's voice was silk over steel. The lease you signed as co-applicant? Daniel's jaw tightened. She needed reliable transportation for work. For work. At your company, where she was your assistant. Maya paused. Until you fired her 3 weeks ago. Would you like to explain why? The color drained from his face. Vanessa hadn't been bluffing about testifying. She took the stand that afternoon, wearing conservative gray, looking nothing like the party girl from the gala. Her testimony was devastating in its simplicity. He said his marriage was over, that his wife was unstable, that he stayed for the children. She met my eyes across the courtroom. I'm sorry. I believed him because I wanted to. But that night at the gala, seeing how he grabbed you, how he tried to control you even then, I knew I'd been lied to. Objection, Daniel's lawyer called. Hearsay. Overruled. The witness is testifying to her direct observations. The final blow came from Charlotte Hayes, appearing via video link from Tokyo. I've worked with Mr. Miller for 5 years. The penthouse design that secured our contract, I've learned it was entirely his wife's work. He presented it as his own. Daniel's carefully constructed image crumbled in real time. The successful businessman became a man who stole his wife's work. The devoted father became someone his own son feared. The wronged husband became a liar caught in his own web. Custody will be awarded to Mrs. Miller, the judge announced after deliberation, with supervised visitation for Mr. Miller pending completion of anger management counseling. The marital assets will be divided equitably, with consideration for Mr. Miller's fiduciary breaches. I didn't cry until we reached the parking garage. Then I sobbed. Not from sadness, but from relief so profound it felt like drowning in reverse, like finally breaking the surface after years underwater. You did it, Maya whispered, holding me as I shook. Sophia, you did it. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Smaller than our suburban house, but flooded with light, windows facing downtown Austin's skyline. Lily raced through the empty rooms, her laughter echoing off hardwood floors. Can my room be purple? She called. The sparkly kind? Any color you want, baby. Ethan stood beside me, studying the space with an architect's son's eye. You could put your drafting table by that window. The light's perfect. My throat tightened. Even through everything, he'd been watching, remembering who I used to be. The sign went up on Tuesday. Carter Design Studio. Simple brass letters on weathered wood hung beside the door of the small office space I'd leased downtown. Ethan and Lily helped, Lily insisting on adding a small heart sticker in the corner. For love, she explained seriously, because you love making things beautiful. My first week, 3 clients called. Former neighbors who'd heard about the divorce, who'd always admired our home's interior, who hadn't known I was the designer behind it. By the second week, Charlotte Hayes' assistant scheduled a meeting. The hotel project in San Antonio, Charlotte said, sliding blueprints across my desk. Boutique luxury, environmentally conscious. I want someone who understands that spaces should breathe. My hands trembled as I reviewed the scope. This is significant. So was standing up in that ballroom. She smiled. I invest in courage, Sophia. Talent's easier to find than backbone. Daniel's visits with the children were awkward productions of fatherhood. He'd take them to expensive restaurants where Lily couldn't pronounce the menu items, buy them things they didn't need. Ethan came home from one visit quiet and thoughtful. He asked if I wanted to live with him. Ethan told me that night. Said he could get me into a better school. My heart hammered. What did you say? I said I already go to a good school, and I live with my family. He paused. Both parts of it, but this part feels more like home. 6 months later, I stood in the completed San Antonio hotel lobby, watching Charlotte's team photograph the space. Curved walls that guided movement like water. Locally sourced materials that told Texas stories. Windows positioned to chase light throughout the day. It was mine, fully mine, with my name attached. Miss Carter? A young woman approached, nervous and hopeful. I'm Sarah, from UT's architecture program. I was wondering, are you taking interns? I thought of all the years I'd made myself small, all the talent I'd buried to keep peace in a house that was never peaceful. Yes, I said. I am. The photo Ethan took that day sits on my desk now. Me in the hotel lobby I designed, surrounded by my work, my name visible on the plans spread across the table. But what you notice first is my smile. Not the careful one I'd worn for years, but something real and unguarded and mine. My name is Sophia Carter. I took it back. I took it all back. And I'm just getting started. Hi, my name is Isabella Monroe. And there's a secret I've been hiding for 8 long years, until the very day he was about to walk down the aisle with another woman, when the truth exploded. I still remember that moment. Nathaniel looked straight into his fiancée's eyes and said, "There won't be a wedding? Not when that little girl is my daughter?" In that instant, our entire world collapsed, and a new battle began. Before I share the rest of my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever fought through hardship for your family, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Cream-colored cardstock, gold embossing, the kind of wedding invitation that whispered money before you even opened it. My hands trembled as I read the names. Asterisk, Nathaniel Carter, and Charlotte Hayes request the honor of your presence. 8 years. 8 years since I'd heard his name spoken aloud, and here it was, elegant script on expensive paper, sitting on my kitchen counter between Lily's cereal bowl and my cold coffee. Mommy, why are you crying? Lily's voice pulled me back. My 7-year-old daughter stood in the doorway, backpack sliding off one shoulder, those gray-blue eyes, his eyes, studying me with concern. I'm not crying, baby. I wiped my face quickly. Just allergies. She didn't buy it. Lily never bought my excuses. Too smart for her own good, my girl. Too much like her father. I should have thrown the invitation away. Should have lit it on fire and scattered the ashes. Instead, I found myself in my car 3 weeks later, Lily buckled in the back seat, driving toward the Ocean View Resort, where Nathaniel Carter, now CEO of Carolina Medical Systems, would marry Charlotte Hayes, daughter of Senator Hayes and heir to half of Charleston's real estate. Where are we going, Mommy? Lily asked for the 3rd time. To see some old friends, I lied, adjusting my rearview mirror. The simple navy dress I'd chosen suddenly felt cheap. Everything about me felt cheap heading into their world. The resort sprawled before us like something from a movie. White columns, manicured gardens, the Atlantic Ocean glittering beyond. Lily pressed her face against the window, mouth open. It's like a castle. My stomach churned. What was I doing? What kind of mother brings her daughter to... Isabella? I froze. That voice, even after 8 years, still made my heart stutter. I turned slowly, and there he was. Nathaniel Carter, in a perfect black tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of every dream I tried to forget. Time had been generous to him. A few lines around his eyes, silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, but still devastatingly handsome. Nate. The nickname slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes swept over me, then dropped to Lily. She was hiding behind my leg, suddenly shy, but peering out with curious eyes. Those unmistakably Carter eyes. And who's this? His voice caught slightly. Before I could answer, before I could make up some lie or excuse, Lily stepped forward with that burst of confidence children sometimes have at the worst possible moments. I'm Lily Monroe, she announced. Then, tilting her head the way she did when puzzling something out, she added, Mommy, is that really my daddy? The champagne glass in Nathaniel's hand shattered on the marble floor. The silence that followed could have swallowed oceans. Guests turned, conversations halted, and somewhere a violin stopped mid-note. Nathaniel's face had drained of color, his eyes locked on Lily's face, studying, calculating, seeing what I'd seen every day for 7 years. Inside. Now. He grabbed my elbow, not roughly, but firmly, steering us away from the gathering crowd. A staff member appeared to clean the glass, and the wedding coordinator, a woman with a clipboard and a panicked expression, tried to intercept us. Mr. Carter, the ceremony. 5 minutes, he said, his CEO voice cutting through her protests. He guided us to a small parlor off the main ballroom. Lily clung to my hand, confused by the sudden tension. I should have prepared her. Should have explained. Should have done so many things differently. The door clicked shut and Nathaniel turned on me. Explain. There's nothing to... Don't. His voice was raw. Don't you dare. She has my eyes, my mother's nose. She even stands like... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. How old is she? 7.5. Lily supplied helpfully. My birthday's in October 15th. Mommy says I was early because I was excited to meet the world. The math was easy. Nathaniel had always been quick with numbers. I watched him count backward, watched realization dawn like a storm breaking. The conference in Atlanta, he whispered. 2 weeks before the photo, before everything shattered. It wasn't what you thought, I said quietly. That picture? The picture of you with another man? The one where you were laughing, touching his arm, looking at him like... He stopped, glancing at Lily, suddenly aware of small ears listening. He was a colleague. Marcus. Gay, actually. His partner had just proposed, and he was showing me the ring. The photographer caught a moment that looked like something it wasn't. You never said... You never let me... The words exploded out of me. 7 years of hurt and frustration breaking free. You saw that photo and decided I was guilty. You blocked my calls, had your secretary screen your emails. You vanished, Nate. You just... vanished. Lily tugged my dress. Mommy, why are you upset? Before I could answer, the door burst open. Charlotte stood there in her wedding dress, a confection of silk and diamonds that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Her perfectly made-up face surveyed the scene with the calculating look of someone who'd grown up in politics. Nathaniel, what is this? Her voice was ice-wrapped in southern honey. Then her eyes fell on Lily, and I saw the exact moment she understood. The resemblance was too strong to deny. Charlotte, Nathaniel started. No. She held up a manicured hand, diamonds catching the light. We are not doing this now. You have 200 guests waiting. Whatever this is, she gestured at Lily and me like we were something unpleasant she'd discovered, can wait until after. Actually, it can't. I found my voice, found the mama bear strength that had carried me through 7 years of single parenthood. My daughter is sick. She needs... Your daughter? Charlotte's laugh was sharp as broken crystal. That's rich. Shows up at the wedding with a child and claims, she's mine. Nathaniel's quiet words cut through her tirade. Look at her, Charlotte. She's mine. The silence that followed was different from before. This was the silence of a world reshaping itself, of carefully laid plans crumbling to dust. Charlotte's face transformed from disbelief to rage to something colder calculation. I'd seen that look before, in courtrooms and custody battles I covered as a reporter before Lily was born. It was the look of someone deciding how to minimize damage. We'll discuss this after the ceremony, she said, voice steady now. Nathaniel, our guests? There isn't going to be a ceremony, he said quietly. Excuse me? I can't marry you. Not now, not with... He looked at Lily again, and something in his expression broke my heart all over again. Wonder, regret, love already taking root despite the shock. Mommy, I need to use the bathroom, Lily whispered, the tension finally getting to her. Down the hall, second door on the right, Charlotte said automatically, then caught herself as if being helpful to my daughter was betraying some principle. After Lily left, I forced myself to meet Charlotte's glare. I didn't come here to ruin anything. She's sick, Charlotte. My daughter is sick. How convenient, she sneered. Show up with a sob story and a child who happens to look... Diamond Blackfan anemia, I interrupted. It's a rare blood disorder. Her bone marrow doesn't produce enough red blood cells. She needs transfusions every 3 weeks just to function. The doctors say her best chance is a bone marrow transplant from a biological relative. The medical terms felt heavy in my mouth. I learned them all, researched until my eyes burned, hoping for some miracle cure that didn't involve finding the man who'd broken my heart. Nathaniel sank into a chair. How long has she... Diagnosed at 3. We've managed with transfusions, but Dr. Patel says she needs a transplant before she hits puberty. The complications increase after that. I pulled out my phone, showing him the folder I'd titled Lily Medical. I have all her records, every test, every treatment. I'm not lying, Nate. I wouldn't use her like that. Charlotte grabbed the phone, scrolling through with the efficiency of someone used to processing information quickly. Her father's daughter, trained to spot frauds and opportunists. I watched her face change as she read, the hostility fracturing slightly. These are from Charleston Children's Hospital, she murmured. Dr. Patel he's the best pediatric hematologist in the state. I know, I said simply. I clean houses on weekends to afford him. The bathroom door opened and Lily returned, immediately sensing the charged atmosphere. She came to my side, slipping her small hand into mine. There are people coming, she announced. Lots of people in fancy clothes. They look confused. Indeed, through the parlor's glass doors, I could see wedding guests milling about, the coordinator frantically trying to maintain order. Charlotte straightened her dress, lifted her chin. I'll handle the guests. Nathaniel, you have 1 hour to sort this out. 1 hour, and then we're leaving for our honeymoon as planned, and this situation will be handled by lawyers. She swept out, every inch the senator's daughter. I heard her voice in the distance, something about a minor medical emergency, and slight delay. Nathaniel stared at Lily like she might disappear. May I talk to her? Lily, I said gently. This is Nathaniel. I couldn't say it. Couldn't just announce, here's your father, like it was nothing. But Lily stepped forward. Are you really my daddy? Mommy doesn't have pictures of my daddy, but you have the same eyes as me. Nathaniel knelt to her level, tears threatening. Yes, sweetheart, I think I am. The drive to Charleston Children's Hospital felt surreal. Nathaniel had insisted on coming immediately, leaving behind 200 confused guests and a furious Charlotte. He'd shed his tuxedo jacket and bow tie, looking more like the man I'd fallen in love with. Lily sat between us in his Mercedes, chattering about her favorite books. Her best friend Emma, the cat she wanted but couldn't have because of her weak immune system. Nathaniel hung on every word, occasionally glancing at me with shell-shocked eyes. She's brilliant, he murmured when Lily paused to look out the window. Gets it from her father, I admitted, earning a sad smile. Dr. Patel met us in his office, walls covered with children's drawings from grateful patients. His kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses had seen us through 4 years of treatments. Miss Monroe, this is unexpected. He glanced at Nathaniel with professional curiosity. Dr. Patel, this is Nathaniel Carter, Lily's father. The word still felt foreign. Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose slightly, but he recovered quickly. Mr. Carter, well, this is fortunate timing. As I've explained to Miss Monroe, Lily's best option for a cure is a bone marrow transplant from a compatible donor. Biological parents have a 50% chance of being a half match, which can work with proper protocols. Whatever she needs, Nathaniel said immediately. Whatever it takes. It's not about money, Dr. Patel interrupted gently. It's about biological compatibility. We'll need to run a complete HLA typing panel. The results take about a week. That night in my small apartment, Nathaniel sat at my scarred kitchen table, looking completely out of place and utterly determined to stay. Charlotte had called 17 times. He'd ignored them all. Tell me everything, he said. From the beginning, please. So I did. The positive pregnancy test 2 weeks after he disappeared. The months of trying to reach him, blocked at every turn. His secretary saying he'd given strict instructions. His family lawyer sending a cease and desist when I tried to contact his mother. I didn't know, he kept saying. Bella, I swear I didn't know. I thought that photo, I was so sure you betrayed me. One photo, Nate. You threw away 3 years for one photo? I was an idiot. My father had just died. The company was in chaos. When I saw that photo, it was like everything was falling apart at once. I couldn't handle losing you too, so I just cut it all away. A week later, Dr. Patel delivered news that shattered our fragile hope. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. You're not a compatible match. Nathaniel's face crumpled. He'd spent the week learning everything about diamond black fan anemia, joining online parent groups, ordering medical textbooks. The determination that built his company was now focused entirely on saving Lily. What about other relatives? He asked desperately. My mother? Any blood relative could potentially match, Dr. Patel confirmed. Siblings have the highest probability at 25% for a perfect match. I have a brother, Nathaniel said quietly. Half-brother. We're not close. That was an understatement. I'd learned about Ethan Carter during our relationship, the family black sheep, Nathaniel's father's son from his first marriage. Wild, unreliable, a source of constant embarrassment to the Carter name. 2 days later, Ethan Carter walked into our lives like a hurricane. Where Nathaniel was pressed suits and careful control, Ethan was worn jeans and barely contained energy. Tattoos peeked from under his t-shirt sleeves. He hadn't shaved in days. So, he said, sprawling in Dr. Patel's waiting room chair, my perfect brother needs something from me. Hell must be frozen. Ethan, Nathaniel started. Save it. Ethan's eyes found me, and something flickered across his face. You must be the famous Isabella, the one who got away. We've never met? No, but I heard stories. Nate was wrecked after you left. Wouldn't shut up about you for months. He studied me with uncomfortable intensity. Though he left out the part about you being pregnant. He didn't know, I said defensively. Yeah, well, there's a lot my brother doesn't know. Ethan stood abruptly. Where's the kid? I led him to the playroom where Lily was building with blocks, a mask over her face to protect her compromised immune system. She looked up as we entered. Lily, this is your Uncle Ethan. Ethan froze in the doorway, Whatever he'd expected, it wasn't the fragile little girl who waved at him with purple painted fingernails. Hi, Uncle Ethan. Do you like castles? I'm building one for my dragon family. Something shifted in Ethan's face. He moved into the room slowly, like approaching a spooked animal, and folded his long frame onto the floor beside her. Dragons need castles, he agreed seriously. Can I help? For an hour, I watched the self-proclaimed family screw-up carefully help my daughter build her dragon castle. He made up stories for each dragon, giving them ridiculous names that made Lily giggle. When she got tired, she always got tired too quickly. He simply adjusted his position so she could lean against him while continuing to build. I'll do it, he said suddenly, looking at me. Whatever she needs, I'll do it. The testing began immediately. While we waited for results, Ethan became a fixture in our lives, showing up with gifts and spending hours with Lily. One afternoon, he dropped a bomb. I took that photo, 8 years ago, drunk, being an ass. Saw you with that guy at the conference. Thought it looked funny out of context. Sent it to Nate as a joke. My world tilted. You destroyed our lives with a drunken joke? I've destroyed a lot of lives with drunken jokes, he said quietly. But this one I might actually be able to fix. The story broke in the Charleston Post the next morning. Wedding scandal. Carter Ayers' secret love child revealed. Someone had snapped photos of us at the hospital. Lily's face was blurred, but mine wasn't. Neither was Nathaniel's. By noon, Charlotte had launched her counterattack. Isabella Monroe is a calculating opportunist who has fabricated a child's illness to extort money from the Carter family, she told Channel 9 News, perfectly coiffed despite her devastating betrayal. The comments online were brutal. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion about my life, my choices, my daughter. Teachers at my school whispered in hallways. Parents pulled their children from my English class. Then came the custody papers. She's suing for emotional distress, Nathaniel explained, looking haggard, and suggesting that you're an unfit mother who's been hiding Lily from her rightful family. Ethan, surprisingly, became our fiercest defender. When a photographer got too close to Lily at the hospital, Ethan accidentally knocked into him, sending his camera into a fountain. When Charlotte gave another interview calling me a gold digger, Ethan posted old family videos showing Charlotte drunkenly admitting she was only marrying Nathaniel for the merger it would create between their families. The test results came on a Thursday. Dr. Patel's face gave it away before he spoke. It's a match. Not perfect, but close enough. We can proceed with the transplant. I collapsed into tears. Lily, not understanding but sensing the emotion, patted my face. Don't cry, Mommy. I'm going to be okay now. That evening, as we celebrated quietly in my apartment, Chinese takeout and juice boxes, Lily's favorite, the doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood outside. Isabella Monroe, we have a warrant to search the premises. There's been an allegation of medical fraud and child endangerment. Behind them, Charlotte's lawyer smiled. Mommy? Lily's scared voice broke through my shock. It's okay, baby, I lied, pulling her close as strangers invaded our home. The search found nothing because there was nothing to find, but Charlotte's message was clear. She could make our lives hell. Fight back, Ethan urged. Air their dirty laundry too. But I was tired. Bone deep, soul-weary tired. Lily needed the transplant in 3 weeks. She needed peace and healing, not a bitter public battle. There's another way, Nathaniel said quietly. We were in his office at Carolina Medical Systems, a gleaming space high above the city. The Carter Foundation Gala is tomorrow night. Every major family in Charleston will be there. Media too. Come, tell your story. Show them who you really are. I'll be announcing my divorce, he continued. Charlotte's already been served. My lawyers found interesting discrepancies in her father's campaign finances. The next night, I walked into the historic Charleston Hotel wearing my only good dress. Whispers followed me like smoke, but I held my head high, thinking of Lily. During his speech about the Foundation's mission to help sick children, Nathaniel gripped the podium and deviated from script. Many of you have heard rumors about my personal life recently. I want to address them directly. 8 years ago, I lost the love of my life because I was too proud to listen, too stupid to trust. That woman, Isabella Monroe, is here tonight. A spotlight found me. She's here because our daughter needs a bone marrow transplant. For 7 years, Bella raised Lily alone, never asking for help, never seeking money, just loving our little girl through every hospital visit, every sleepless night, every fear. Charlotte stood abruptly. How dare you? Sit down, Charlotte. You wanted the truth public? Let's make it public. You hired photographers to stalk a sick child. You tried to have her mother arrested on false charges. You turned a medical crisis into a media circus. It's truth, Ethan said, stepping into the spotlight with me. And here's another truth. I'm the compatible donor. The family disappointment is going to save his niece's life. Someone started clapping, then another. Soon, half the room was applauding, while Charlotte stood rigid with rage. You'll regret this, she told Nathaniel. No, he said simply. My only regret is the 8 years I missed. Charlotte swept out, her parents trailing behind. The senator looked back once with something unexpected in his eyes. Relief? The transplant was scheduled for spring, when the azaleas would be blooming. Ethan went through the preparation like a man on a mission, following every medical instruction. The morning of the procedure, our small waiting room was crowded. My parents had driven down from Virginia. Nathaniel's mother Elizabeth sat primly in the corner. She defied family pressure to be here. It's a simple procedure, Dr. Patel assured us again. But nothing about this journey had been simple. In pre-op, Lily was brave. I'm not scared. Uncle Ethan said being brave is better than being scared. Will you both be here when I wake up? She asked. Right here, I promised. Both of us. The hours stretched endlessly. Ethan came out first, groggy but grinning. Lily's part took longer. The marrow had to drip slowly into her system, find its way to her bones, convince her body to accept this gift. Charlotte appeared carrying an envelope. I'm dropping the lawsuits. My father made me. Turns out attacking sick children is bad for re-election campaigns. She handed me the envelope. Nathaniel kept pictures of you, all of them. I thought you might want them. I hope she's okay, Charlotte added quietly before leaving. I never wanted her hurt. Dr. Patel emerged at sunset. The transplant is complete. Now we wait. Those weeks blurred together. Lily battled fever, nausea, exhaustion, but slowly, her blood counts began to rise. Her body accepted Ethan's gift, began producing its own healthy cells. Look, Mommy, she said one morning. My nails aren't blue anymore. Such a small thing. Such an enormous victory. 6 months later, the azaleas were blooming again. Lily raced through Elizabeth's garden while Ethan chased her with theatrical roars. She could run now without getting winded. Nathaniel sat beside me on the porch swing, close but not presuming. We were taking things slowly, rebuilding trust brick by brick. He pulled out a velvet box, the ring he'd bought 8 years ago. I'm not proposing yet, but when you're ready, if you're ever ready. Ask me again when Lily's 10, I said softly. When we know she's truly okay. Lily ran up, Ethan collapsing behind her in mock exhaustion. Mommy, Daddy, Uncle Ethan says I'm too fast now. Are you happy, Mommy? She asked, climbing into my lap. I looked at my healthy daughter, at Nathaniel, who'd learned that love meant showing up, at Ethan, who'd found purpose, at Elizabeth, who chose love over expectations. Yes, baby, I'm happy. The sun set over Charleston, painting the sky in hope. The vows we never kept had led us here, to promises we could actually fulfill, to show up, to try, to love past the fear. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better. It was real.